After 12 years of NC, my ex-wife, who cheated on me with her coworker and divorced me, ruining our 28-year relationship, contacted me, hoping to reconcile after she lost everyone and everything in her life, while I'm dating several ladies and enjoying life with my family. My 62 male wife, 62 female, divorced me 12 years ago, after 28 years of marriage and 2 wonderful children. I later learned she cheated on the way out. Now my ex-wife wants us to be friends and maybe date again. Need advice about how to proceed and what concerns I should anticipate after 12 years. I was destroyed 12 years ago, but I'm doing well now and love my single life. A friend recommended I post my story here so others might gain some perspective on what worked for me and what didn't, and how I found out and survived, and to gain some advice from this community. This is 12 years after all the drama. I know the tone and attitude would have been far different had I written this back then. The person who coined the term emotional roller coaster got it exactly right, and you can't get off. But the ride does get smoother. Life goes on. We had a near perfect marriage. We met in college and married soon after graduation. That was 40 years ago. I was a jock, and she was a beauty and very smart. We did have some tight financial times early on and had to make some sacrifices, but we were both of the same mind on spending and saving. We socialized together, did hobbies together, and did everything as a couple. We stood by each other through family tragedies and struggles with each of our aging parents and their eventual passing, and even a couple of our own health scares. She survived cancer, and I had heart issues. We're both fine now. Like most married couples, we were true partners in every way, a team. We moved 3 times into progressively nicer homes as the kids grew up and our incomes increased. Same school district. We even bought a lake house 2 hours away when our kids were teenagers and made many cherished memories there over the years. With all of that, plus stashing away funds for the kids' college, we were still able to become completely debt-free the last several years of our marriage. A long-time goal, and we celebrated with a night out on the town, limousine and all, like rich people. It was great fun. But even for that night, we had a budget and stuck to it. Our intimate time was good, even after having kids. Less frequent as we aged, but still good. After so many years, you just sense when your partner is in the mood and when not. We went on date nights at least once a month after the kids were beyond the toddler stage, and went on vacations and camping trips and many other activities as they got older. We were always completely involved and busy. When the kids were old enough to stay home alone, we joined a bowling league and bowled once a week with good friends for many years. We were so busy with our own increasingly demanding jobs and the kids' activities that I hired a maid service to clean and do laundry a couple of times per week. My wife was against it at first, but got on board pretty quickly. She was worried that the kids would get entitled and lazy, but we made sure they still made their beds, cleaned their rooms, put away their washed clothes, and did all of their normal chores like trash and yard work. I knew my wife's love language was words of affirmation and acts of service. My language was physical touch and quality time. We never really argued or shouted at each other. It's not in our nature. We were always on the same page with big decisions, but sometimes disagreed on little stuff. Usually I caved to keep harmony, but when I stood firm, she would give me the silent treatment for a few hours or a day, but that's about it. I know in my heart we were happy, and I know she would have agreed. Our kids are a son and a daughter, 2 years apart. They are the joy of our lives and are both grown and starting their own families now. Our son was an accomplished athlete, just like me, and our daughter was a cheerleader and in the choir and belonged to several school clubs. Our kids didn't give us too much trouble since my son's coaches, and I kept him on the straight and narrow for sports. And our daughter has always been well-grounded and mature for her age. She was always a daddy's girl, except for a year or so as an early teenager when she detested me. I couldn't do anything right, but she grew out of that stage, and we became good again. Funny thing is, towards the end of her high school years, the wife and daughter were sometimes at odds and not speaking. I guess it's a mother-daughter thing. But after our daughter moved out and on her own, they became very close and talk or text every day. All this to say, we had a great marriage, great kids, and a fulfilling life for 28 years. That's a long time. We told each other we loved each other, and did the I love you more dick. On our 25th anniversary, we renewed our vows at her suggestion, and I agreed if we also went on the honeymoon we couldn't afford as newlyweds. We invited the kids, but they said no, it was our time. We had it all. She was still attractive, and I told her so, and I was too because she told me so. A little over 12 years ago, after our kids were gone on their own, my wife fell into a mindset of, is that all there is, like the Peggy Lee song. I had just turned 50, and she was 49, soon to be 50. I could sense she was a little troubled, and I even walked in on her quietly crying a couple of times. We had some long conversations over the next several weeks, and she said she loved me and our lives, but felt like she needed something more. Also that it was her, not me, and I had done nothing wrong. I was confused and worried. I thought maybe it was just an empty nest, a midlife crisis, or even boredom. I will fix this. I tried everything from reading relationship books to being more attentive and complimentary to doing things I knew pleased her. She tried new activities that would add some excitement to her life. I also tried to get home earlier, worked out more, shaved twice a day, and got my hair trimmed every week to always look my best for her. Our intimate time actually increased for a little while as I spiced things up. Trouble was, it wasn't working. In fact, all of my extra efforts and attention ended up having the opposite effect. I could feel she was less interested in me, not more. How could that be? She eventually declared she needed independence and space and wanted us to divorce. I argued for a temporary separation, but she seemed set on the divorce route. I was completely shocked, and so were the kids. Why? What changed? We stopped communicating as much after that. I never asked if she still loved me because I feared the answer. I did ask a few times if there was someone else, and she would say something like, "That's not what this is about," so I assumed the answer was no. I didn't suspect anything because she had always been completely open with her computer and phone, and never stayed out late with friends, so I dismissed that thought. Besides, she would never do that. She did have to work late sometimes and traveled to call on her client accounts a little more. But we both had high-level positions by then, and I assumed that was expected. I scheduled a coffee with one of her closest girlfriends to ask about my wife's change in attitude, and she seemed surprised too. Menopause, hormones. Her friend promised to find out and let me know. My marriage was falling apart. During the divorce process, I lost my appetite and had trouble sleeping. I cried sometimes when alone, very rare for me. Men don't cry, and I would have moved mountains to keep her. Just show me the mountain. I thought I could fix anything if I tried hard enough. But this time I didn't know what to fix. I was losing her and felt helpless to stop it, completely out of my hands. I remember laying flat on the floor and just staring up at the ceiling for hours in a kind of trance. My beloved dog Max would lay his big head on my chest and just breathe with me. Dogs really do sense things. My work was suffering, so I took a 1-month sabbatical. Big mistake, because staying home and being alone during the day made things worse. My wife would come home from work, and I had done the yard work, cleaned the house, done laundry, done the shopping, made dinner, arranged fresh flowers on the counter, and dressed casual but nice, all for her. I hadn't yet learned my lesson and couldn't help it. It's amazing how trying to attract a female can motivate and focus a male so completely. It must be in our DNA, sadly. She would just run up to shower and come back down in her least flattering flannel bedcloth to eat. Sometimes she would acknowledge my efforts, sometimes not. She was not mean or spiteful, just dispassionate. I'd ask about her day, and she would reply with a few sentences and maybe a few comments about the kids, and that would be our conversation for the day. We used to talk about everything in detail all through dinner and after. Now she spent most evenings in her home office until bedtime. In bed, she did allow me to cuddle up behind her some, but the intimate time stopped completely. I tried to ask her in different ways what had happened to us, and she would just shrug as if to say, "I don't know," sometimes with a tear. She had to know how much she was hurting me, but just wouldn't talk about it. We divorced. The pain was intense, as you guys know. I had failed. I wasn't enough for her even when trying my best. I have such empathy for anyone losing a long-term partner. It negates the reason you existed all those years, like all your time with her was nothing, erased. We both stayed amicable during the divorce process, and our lawyer helped us split assets pretty much 50-50, with her agreeing to most decisions in my favor. Money was not an issue. Each of us kept our pensions, asset plans, and stock options. She did sob a little when we signed the final papers in the lawyer's office. When he officially filed, we quickly sold both the big house and the lake house. She wasn't interested in them anymore, and I was too heartbroken to want either of them without her or the kids there. She bought a nice condo closer to her work, and I helped her find it and even rented a truck and helped move her in. She took most of the furniture and kitchen stuff. That was her thing. And I took all the tools and equipment and electronics and grills. That was my thing. I'm the homeowner type and bought a smaller house on a wooded acreage just outside of town where my dog could run outdoors. I loved that dog. He comforted me through those bad times, and I still have his ashes on my mantle and frequently thank him with a nod. I thank my human friends too, both guys and gals, for their support during some dark days. They checked up on me and made sure I didn't go through this alone. So did my kids. Also, my newly purchased house and property needed some maintenance, and I enjoyed working on it as a distraction, and my buddies and son helped me on many evenings and weekends. My labor cost was keeping the fridge stocked with beers. Also, the wife of a friend and a female coworker together helped me pick out furniture and decorate and get all the essentials, and I made sure they had bottles of high-end wine. They were all the best. I was able to extend my sabbatical by 2 additional months. I still felt empty and hopeless, and without purpose, and needed to get my head straight. The kids took the divorce pretty hard. We didn't really talk about it much at the time other than them making sure I was okay. They both seemed to put the blame all on their mother. My son refused to help move his mom into her new condo. Our daughter refused to speak to her for several months, and was cold to her for a few years. I think that hurt my ex-wife the most, as they had previously communicated nearly every day. I figured this was natural because it was their mother who wanted the divorce, not me, and they could see my pain. For several months after the divorce, the ex and I remained friends of sorts, and we still exchanged texts. I set up her home entertainment and security systems, and she also invited me over for dinner a couple of times, and I jumped at each offer. But I was walking on eggshells. What a fool I was after all the pain she caused. 6 months after the divorce, our smart, beautiful daughter was scheduled to marry her longtime fiancé. A good guy with a bright future, and they had our enthusiastic blessing. This had been planned well before the divorce. Our daughter had her bachelorette party in a local hotel conference room, so everyone could get rooms and relax at the party without driving home. Believe it or not, I was invited as well as some of her cousins, aunts, and uncles, along with her friends, including some male friends. How many dads get invited to their daughter's bachelorette party? It was great, and everyone had a ball. There was a DJ and dancing and some jokes, but nothing weird like male strippers or anything like that. Our daughter didn't invite her mother, which really upset her big time. Ex told me how disappointed and hurt she was for not being invited, and even called me a couple of times that night to see how things were going. I wasn't over my ex yet, but I was better. The pain was no longer constant, and I wanted her to find whatever she was missing in her life. I realize now that I was still hopeful she would come back to me after she found it, and I'll admit that at that point, I would have welcomed her back in a heartbeat. At the end of the party, after the guests had all gone to their rooms or the hotel bar, my daughter sat on the couch next to me, in front of the fireplace, with her head on my shoulder, and we sipped good scotch and recounted many happy times into the wee hours. We laughed and cried. It was perfect, and I didn't want the night to end. Toward the end, we were getting pretty mushy, and my daughter finally brought up the divorce. We hadn't discussed it much before other than logistics, never the emotional stuff. Paraphrasing here, in a haze, I asked my daughter, as a woman, what it was like to live with me, and then I knew I wasn't perfect. I knew this was a high-risk question, but after the divorce, I just had to ask. She said that I could sometimes be intense and had high expectations. They were all worried about disappointing me. With a giggle, she said that she and her brother, and even Mom, used to refer to me affectionately as Sergeant Dad, or the Sergeant, but they knew I would always be there for them. I told her that I knew I wasn't the most emotionally open guy, but I cared even if I didn't show it enough. She knew and replied that she could only hope that her new husband would be as good a husband and father as I am, and she just wished I could find someone who makes me really happy and not cheat like Mom. Wait, what? She saw the look on my face and said, OMG, you don't know. That's why you guys divorced. Mom never told you. My daughter knew that my wife cheated with another man just before we divorced and thought they were still seeing each other. I was flabbergasted. I asked her why she didn't tell me before, and she said that she assumed I already knew more than she did, and that's why I had divorced Mom. Everyone did. In tears, she told me it was a really bad time, and she purposely avoided the whole subject with me other than making sure I was okay. I told her that I didn't divorce her mom. Her mom divorced me. I hugged her and thanked her for being with me, and that she would always be my little girl. I asked her when and how long, and she didn't know for sure, but assumed it started a month or so before her mom and I first discussed divorce. I asked if her brother knew, and she said yes, they talked about it a lot. In fact, he's the one who did social media research and suspected there might be someone else. Kids are so perceptive. That's why my kids were so cold to their mother and so sympathetic to me. My perception of my ex-wife changed forever that night. I had been as friendly as I could all through the divorce process and after, but now I didn't know how to act. My mind was racing, and I didn't sleep much that night. I never suspected anything, but thinking back, she had been getting her hair and nails done more often, shaving her legs and things more, buying nicer clothes, taking longer picking out just the right outfit some mornings, and spending more time on eye makeup. She didn't wear much makeup. At the time, I just assumed it was her trying to keep up with the younger women at her job. She was about to turn 50, and I know that bothered her. Also, she was working longer hours and the occasional Saturday, and sometimes traveled to visit clients. But she had many responsibilities at work, and I just figured that was necessary. The truth was, she wasn't looking for something more in her life. She had already found it, and it was another man. As horrible as her rejection was, this betrayal was much worse. My world fell apart again. The next morning, my daughter brought her laptop to the lobby and showed me the Alms Facebook page and other sites. It turns out this guy is an executive for a client of mine's company, one of her larger accounts. My daughter admitted that he's not bad looking but not nearly as good as you, Dad. Mom traded down. Hard to hear talk like that from your daughter. He was a widower with a grown daughter himself. There were no pictures that showed my ex, and her name wasn't specifically mentioned. But his postings implied that he was infatuated with a recent divorcee that sounded just like my ex-wife. He knew her likes and dislikes and wished her a happy 50th birthday on my ex-wife's birthday. My daughter said that mom had deleted her own Facebook and Instagram accounts sometime during the divorce, so there was nothing to see from her side anymore. I immediately ignored ghosted my ex-wife. No response to texts and didn't answer calls or emails, even from her friends. The wife's best friend that promised to find out more never did get back to me, so she either already knew at the time or later and was protecting her ex's secret. My ex and I both attended our daughter's wedding the next weekend. During the week I had gone from shock and numb to anger. Also, my daughter announced there would be no rehearsal or rehearsal dinner, nor would there be a receiving line after the ceremony. I think she did this for me. In any case, the wedding was my first contact with the ex after learning the truth. Due to all the increased stress and workouts, I had lost over 20 pounds and knew I looked good in my tailored tux as I proudly walked my daughter down the aisle. After I gave the bride away and turned to sit next to my ex in our reserved seats up front, I saw she looked absolutely stunning in a tight black dress and heels, and her hair all put up, red lipstick, and dark hose, everything she knew I liked. But I didn't say a word to her. I was so angry that she had deceived me, and all I could see was the image of her with Yom. She tried to hold my hand during the vows, but I gently pulled away. I also shifted slightly so our thighs and shoulders didn't touch. She had tears at the end of the ceremony, but I don't know why or what was in her head. When we left to go take the wedding photos, I got up and left her sitting there. The ushers had to escort her out because I didn't. I know, a DCK thing to do, but it felt right at the moment. During the picture session, not a word to her, although she did try to engage me a couple of times. I joked with my daughter and everyone else, just not with her. What did she expect? I smiled for my daughter's sake, but couldn't wait to get to the reception area where I could get a strong drink and away from my ex. Fortunately, my daughter had prearranged the seating, and I was assigned next to her. But she had my ex seated a few chairs down, another blow to her. Apparently the ex didn't know that I knew about the otherwise, how could she expect to still be friends? My respect, trust, and desire for my ex were gone, ruined, no matter how beautiful she was. I gave my glowing father of the bride toast, but didn't reference my ex at all, as if she didn't have any role in raising our daughter. Again, a DCK move, I know. When we did the father-bride dance, I didn't look in my ex's direction, but I'm told she was crying. Both sets of parents were supposed to dance next, but we didn't. I successfully avoided my ex for the remainder of the evening and enjoyed myself with my daughter, son, new son-in-law, and relatives. I didn't see my ex leave, so I don't know how long she stayed. But the few times I did see her, she looked sad. Not like someone celebrating her daughter's marriage. My company's policy required decision-makers, corporate officers, to attend at least one counseling session after a traumatic life event, like a death in the family, divorce, childbirth, even for the father, etc. I was already several months past due, and HR was bugging me weekly, so I scheduled the mandatory session just to get the box checked off. I ended up going 3 more times. I never thought I would ever go for IC, but I'll admit he helped. Not that touchy-feely psychobabble stuff I had imagined. He couldn't help me understand why or what my ex did and didn't try, but how I could react to it in a healthy way, part of which was to continue no contact until I was in a better state of mind. When I was ready to talk to her was my choice, not hers. Another was to decide if I wanted to know details and timing about the ex-wife's affair activities and her feelings, or not, my choice. Next was to determine if my ex-wife and I could ever be friends again, my choice. Another was to determine if reconciliation could ever be possible someday, and what things I would require from my ex-wife to consider it my choice. Each decision and my reasons had to be written down and brought to the next session. Looking back, I think much of this was the counselor trying to put some decisions and control back into my hands, and it worked for my personality. There were also discussions along the way about my feelings and emotions and anger, but those were personal, so I won't get into that. In the last session, we discussed how to live alone and what would make me happy and fulfilled in the future. My purpose had always been head of household and husband and father. I needed a new purpose and goals. Now I wish I would have suggested or demanded that my ex-wife and I attend MC back when all this started. Maybe it could have helped, at least for me. Apparently my continued no contact 180 took a toll on my ex. In the months after the daughter's wedding, she left me several long voice messages, some tearful. I didn't listen to all of them and never responded. But, paraphrasing again, she was sorry about not telling me about the and the way I found out and desperately wanted us to talk about things and at least be friends again. In a later message, she said she made a huge mistake and is so sorry for hurting me and really misses me in our lives. Can we talk? On one of the last messages, she sounded a little tipsy and rambled that she knows how much she hurt me, and she was wrong, and she lost the only man she's ever loved, and her family and most of her friends, and she knows I hate her, but she will always love only me, and will always be my girl, and would give anything to put things back the way they were. Again, what did she expect from me? That ship had sailed. I didn't want to talk about things or care to know about the or any details. Knowing that she chose him and threw me away after 28 years when I was suffering and trying so hard was enough. That was 12 years ago. It doesn't hurt anymore. Like my counselor predicted, I had to learn how to live alone and redefine my purpose. Our friends who knew about the are no longer my friends. I made my house into my dream palace. I added a third bay in the garage for my new Harley Softail with a deuce seat and an ATV. I rode before I met her, but my ex never let me even consider a motorcycle after our first child. I put all the newest conveniences in my kitchen and living spaces and turned the basement into my man cave with a killer sound system, multi-screen video facilities, a wet bar, and a quality gym. After a long day, I go down there and work out interval training, then sit in my recliner in the dark with my sound system turned up high playing classical music or old rock and chill out. Ex always frowns on me playing my music loud. Also, my house is now the place where all the guys come on game days NFL. We watch several games simultaneously, like in a sports bar. I also set up a playroom with a TV and small furniture and animals painted on the walls and a toy box full of toys for my little grandkids. I love those grandkids, and my son and daughter bring them to visit regularly. We had a pumpkin carving party here just last week, and it was loads of fun. I'm thinking of getting another dog to play with the grandkids and me. I installed a remote wood-burning furnace with heat exchanger and heat my home mostly from my own timber now. It works great and helps keep me off the couch and active in the colder months. I became obsessed with cooking and recipes and learned which dishes were quickest, easiest, and made the best leftovers. I came to enjoy cooking and eventually branched out into more complex meals for my lady friends. They love it, and I enjoy doing it for them. I also love single life from the romance side. My buddies' spouses and girlfriends tried setting me up with other women early on, but I resisted. They are such matchmakers. I finally gave in after almost 2 years for a double date, with my kids' strong urging. I was scared but have grown from those first timid, awkward double dates to now having ongoing relationships with several amazing women. Things are different dating in your 50s and early 60s nowadays, rather than when I was a young man. There are many smart, attractive, unattached women, my age and younger, that crave attention from a relatively healthy man. You don't have to be a superstar. You just have to be respectful, attentive, confident, and most of all, fun. I'm always completely honest with them that I am not looking for a wife or even an exclusive relationship. Did that for 28 years and loved it, but don't want it again. I'm cautious and very selective. I won't be with a married woman, nor will I be with a woman for a hookup. I have to really like her and have fun and enjoy her company. And I also sense she feels the same for me. Getting into her bed is not the goal like it was when I was young and stupid. I take them to concerts, ball games, camping, backyard cookouts, dinner theaters, and other things before getting close, if it even happens. It's not a requirement. It took me a while to get used to non-exclusive thinking, and I would get jealous and possessive if I saw one of them out with someone else or group. It was hard to break the exclusive mindset and remain free. I finally realized that you can't expect to control a partner any more than they can control you. That's part of the deal and fair. I like it because I know she is with me because she wants to be with me at that moment, not just because we are in some kind of relationship where it's expected of her. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a playboy. I never pressure or make it an expectation of spending time together. It's kind of refreshing for both them and me. It takes the pressure off. Some ladies wish to be pursued and seduced. That's not me. I have lady friends that I will never be intimate with, and that's okay. I enjoy my time with them all the same. I've been a private pilot for many years and fly my own small plane, experimental, amateur built. But my wife never enjoyed flying. Most of the ladies absolutely love it, and I have invited each individually to accompany me to fly-ins and day trips. Heard of the $100 hamburger? They also enjoy breakfast or lunch outings on my Harley. Each of these special women has their own passions, and I have climbed Mount Baker trained for months, took scuba training, and got my PADI open water dive certificate, and skydived tandem with her instructor as she jumped and took videos. Also went to the opera, and it wasn't that bad. Who knew? One even took me to some city parks looking for wedding parties. When we found one, we would mingle with the guests and eat their food and drink their booze, and everybody just assumed we must be with the other party, the bride or groom. It wasn't a cheap out thing, as we would always throw in $100 when we saw a collection jar or money tree. These are just highlights, and more often than not I'm home alone, or occasionally cuddling on the couch with one of them watching Netflix or grooving to her favorite music. The point is, these women push me to do things I would never have done on my own. I still struggle sometimes wanting these women to myself, especially the wedding crasher gal. She's the whole package, but I can't allow myself to think that way. Just before COVID, I went on a 7-day cruise with 3 attractive women. I had only dated one of them before and during the trip, but all 3 were fun and flirty, and we laughed and had the best time. We went on daily excursions, then danced and partied on the ship every night. This is me at over 60 years old, one of the best vacations of my life. At the end of the cruise, a representative approached me and asked if I would like to go on future cruises at some unbelievable discounts. It seems they need more older single men to dance and interact with all the single ladies and widows. Wow, what would that make me? Gigolo. Unfortunately, my ex may not be as blessed as I am. I'm told her relationship with the OM lasted about 3 years. I didn't know the details or if they ever actually lived together. Also, I didn't know if she dated or saw anyone else. Not my business. I know my daughter and my ex have become close again after her relationship with the OM ended. To appease my kids, I did start responding to my ex's texts and emails around 5 years ago, but just to share info and pictures about the grandkids. Recently, my ex-girlfriend wrote that she wants to sit down and talk with me when I'm ready about the divorce and the affair and answer any questions. But I just don't have any desire to know any of that. I see no upside, so I just ignore those emails. We saw each other at weddings and funerals and births and exchanged simple greetings. The last time we actually talked much was at our newest grandson's christening. She was still attractive, but older, aren't we all? She always had natural beauty and didn't wear much makeup. Now she does. I'm in my best shape in years, but she looked very thin. She told me that it was not fair that I got better with age, implying she didn't. We sat and talked mostly about the grandkids and how they are growing up so fast. We also laughed about many fond memories of us and our kids growing up for over 2 hours. I really enjoyed that, and it made me remember why I fell for her in the first place. Her personality, energy, and humor. I'll admit, I got those butterflies like when we were dating. She always continued to send me birthday and anniversary and Christmas and Valentine's cards and the occasional fruit basket. And sometimes she sends me tickets to some cool events, because her career is organizing events at large and medium venues. I don't know how she knows so much about my life, but she seems to. My kids don't know much about my social life. That's private. I don't use social media. I never have, so my private life is not out there for all to see. I have never introduced any of my lady friends to my kids, but they do sometimes see pictures of our activities together. But they say that mom has mentioned my more exciting adventures. My kids tell me she always asks if I ever ask about her. My daughter does comment on how happy and easygoing I am these days. I think that's because I retired last year, and the pressures of the job and corporate politics are gone forever. Very liberating and does wonders for your day-to-day attitude. These are truly golden years. How long will it last? Who knows? I still sometimes grieve the loss of my marriage, triggered by an old picture, a place, or a song. My ex and I have recently agreed that she will be there for me when I get old and need assistance. And I promise to be there for her, and be her advocate when she needs it. Her family has a history of stroke. She brought it up, and is serious about it. So am I. We have signed HIPAA and medical directive forms for each other. She will always be the mother of my children, and the grandmother of my grandchildren. Over the past few months, she has invited me to dinner at her condo on an evening of my choosing. Or if I prefer, out on a date instead. My choice, her tab. My daughter has also mentioned this more than once in the past months, and let slip that mom is not seeing anyone and hasn't for years. And I'm the only one she pines for. Will I take my ex out on a date or visit her for dinner? Maybe, not sure. We need to think about that more. I'm intrigued but cautious. Are they ganging up on me? My daughter knows better than to ambush me with her mother. But I 100% trust my daughter would never allow me to be hurt again. So what is their endgame? I am divorced, but will not be alone in my old age either way. I loved my married life and wife, and now I love my single life. Life goes on. TLDR. My wife, 62 female, divorced me, 62 male, 12 years ago, after 28 years of marriage and raising 2 wonderful children. 6 months after the divorce, I was still not over her. Then learned from my daughter at her bachelorette party that my ex-wife cheated just before the divorce and was still seeing the OM. My opinion of my ex changed, and I immediately went NC with her. And after a couple of years, I leveled up and am dating several ladies and having cool adventures as a single man. It didn't work out as well for the ex-wife. And now she wants us to talk and date again after being divorced for 12 years. Need advice about how to proceed and what issues I should anticipate after 12 years. I will post my responses to the very thoughtful comments in another post. This one is already really long. Update. Response. Thanks for all your thoughtful advice and perspectives. Appreciated. I know it can never be the same with my ex. Also, I love my single life now. Can I trust her? No, but my daughter seems to. My ex took my actions at the daughter's wedding and NC pretty hard. I stayed in NC for years, but heard through the grapevine that it was bad for her. She was distraught and depressed and very sad. One of our common friends said that she went on antidepressants for a year or so. Plus the voicemail messages she left me were pretty sad. This friend also said that my ex kept dating the OM, only because the kids and I would not talk to her. The OM was all she had left. Having dinner out with her, not at her place or mine, sounds interesting, just for curiosity. I don't want to hear about the affair or the OM, and will shut that down if it comes up. I will make an agenda beforehand to make sure we stay on track. Response. I have decided, thanks to helpful advice from here, to accept her as a family member and grandmother of our grandkids, and maybe someday a friend, but not romantically. She was not honest with me, and my life is so much different now. After 12 years, I know I have the distance and discipline to maintain these boundaries. As for the gigolo thing, I would never take a cruise where I would be required to interact with a single woman on board. Does not sound fun to me. Sounds miserable. Response. Talk to my kids separately. My son thinks I should interact with his mother at family activities, but is skeptical of anything romantic with her. My daughter is more in the maybe try again camp, but she talks with her mother in a more personal way than my son. They are both great kids, and I'm proud of them. The grandchildren are like little versions of them running around, and I can't explain how gratifying and fulfilling it is. I absolutely love being a grandpa, and I'm actually looking forward to sharing that part with my ex, but any romance with her is out of the question. Response. I have decided to wait until after all the holidays to invite my ex-wife to dinner at a nice restaurant to discuss our current situation and boundaries going forward. I will propose attending family events together, but nothing romantic. If she tries to talk about the affair or the divorce, I will stop that. I don't want to hear any of that stuff. Maybe I'm protecting my emotions and ego, but whatever. Response. Yes, for medical decisions, I'm comfortable with my ex-wife. My kids are listed as alternates. My ex and I have been through medical issues a few times over the years, and she is the calm one while everyone else is hysterical. She is a natural caregiver with lots of empathy and thinks of everything. She apparently has the same trust in me. When I had my heart attack now fixed, my wife went into 100% caregiver mode and immersed herself in heart issues, terminology, prevention, treatment, rehabilitation, diet, etc. She practically became a cardiologist. So yes, I'm comfortable with her as my medical decision maker, even now. Response. I scheduled a meeting with my ex for dinner at a nice restaurant. I know the manager, and he will get us a table in a fairly private setting. She immediately accepted. My purpose is to tell her that I am not interested in anything romantic, but would like to invite her to family activities at my home, and I want to attend the family events at her place, and we can attend other activities together as they get older. I don't intend to discuss the affair or the divorce. I will make an agenda to make sure we don't get off track. I do have a couple of questions about the why, but don't want to hear about the I will put up the debrief of that meeting as a separate post. Update. Several folks asked for an update when something happened, and something has happened. I had a meeting with my ex-wife this week. Appreciate all the advice and perspectives. You guys and gals brought up issues that I would never have considered and truly altered my thinking, thus keeping me from rushing into a likely mistake. Thanks. I contacted my ex-wife a couple of weeks ago via text and set up a time when we could meet to answer some questions and discuss our relationship going forward. I was vague, but worded it so she knew this was not a date. She responded immediately. First, I need to clear up a few misconceptions I implied about my life and events. I didn't anticipate how posting and replying to all the great comments here would make me so introspective. I said in my post that our marriage was near perfect. Looking back, I worked hard at my job and as husband and father, but didn't stop to smell the roses. I lived life fast forward, not stopping to just enjoy the moments, always rushing to the next thing. Just one example of many. When we spent time at the lake house, I was always doing maintenance or some project or doing things with the kids. That was me relaxing. We never went there just to sit on the dock and hold hands and watch the sunset together. We should have. Not an excuse for her ending our marriage. But I need to own my faults. I'm sure there were other shortcomings. Be aware, guys. I made my life sound perfect the past 12 years after divorce. It wasn't. I'm very happy now but struggle to get here. And it's not all cool adventures all the time. My post probably put too much emphasis on my lady friends to express how well I had moved on and my new mindset. It actually took me 2 long years of self-pity and doubt before I even got the courage to go on a double date, and even those weren't fun at first. My post mentioned all the good stuff, but didn't mention the challenges and complications of life and multiple relationships. Not all the attractive ladies that I encountered were date-worthy. In fact, several had issues, and a few were just flakes. Bet the guy market is like that too. That's part of the reason I learned to be so selective and cautious, and spend so much time before getting close, if ever. Also, when a lady that I really like falls for someone else and becomes exclusive with him, it hurts and stabs my ego a little. Not everyone is satisfied being non-exclusive. Also, I have developed some additional heart issues, and it will likely affect my FA third-class medical to fly soon. I was denied an FA medical several years ago, then got it back. But it's still complicating things. One of my lady friends saw this story narrated on YouTube and recognized it as mine obvious. I hadn't thought of that. She was surprised at how much I suffered, and that I didn't show it. But she said it helped explain my thinking, and she thinks it's good that I got it all out there. In fact, it led to a great philosophical discussion about how men and women inherently have different wants and needs from a relationship that could be a whole post in itself. Also, when I say my lady friends, it is not a derogatory term, like a harem, just the opposite. I have great respect for these women and value their opinions and independence. These are squared away women in their own right. They don't need me. It turns out I'm mostly attracted to strong women. My ex-wife was one. Now not so much. I decided to wait until after all the holidays to have a meet-up with my ex-wife to keep it simple. I was on edge all that week and especially that day, not sure why. Maybe from fear that I might still have romantic feelings when face to face. My kids knew about the meeting and wished us luck, no pressure. It went better than I expected. I didn't record the conversation but took mental notes. I guess such an important conversation keeps you focused because I can recall almost every word and expression over several hours. It's much harder writing about current feelings than past history. These words aren't exact or all-inclusive, but convey the relevant points and tone the best I can. We met at a nice restaurant where we are both friends with the manager, and he saved a private, quiet space for us. You warned about her dressing seductive, but she arrived looking elegant. Elegant is seductive to me. Before we sat, she started to hug me, but I turned and pulled the chair out for her, feeling clumsy and awkward. She was nervous too, so we made easy small talk through a couple glasses of wine until we both relaxed a little. The manager has known us for years and had already poured the wines we each liked. Soon her humor began showing again with her easy smile and those bright eyes. I thought to myself how pretty and personable she is, and some guy is going to be lucky to date her. What a strange thing to pop into my head. Completely unexpected. I knew then I'd be okay. I don't hate her. I never did. But I don't have romantic feelings for her either. I relaxed. Then I unfolded a sheet of paper with my meeting agenda, and she laughed and said, "That's just like you." We joked about some times when we had overplanned. We were never very spontaneous, and a few times when our plans had gone comically wrong. She then smiled and leaned forward and said, "Okay, what did you get there?" She made it easy. First on my list is that I did not want to know details about the affair or about the embrouille, but I'm curious. Why? What happened to us? She knew this was coming. She said that she does not have an adequate answer for why, even after all these years, even for herself. She knows her decisions and behavior were irrational, and she can't comprehend or explain who she was during that time other than being confused and selfish. She said she became restless and moody and unsure about her life. That's true, I remember that. She started to tell me about how she and the met, but I put up my hands and said no. I don't want to hear about that, you guys warned me. She actually seemed relieved, but continued that it had nothing to do with me, and that it was nothing that I did or didn't do. She insisted that I had been a wonderful husband and father, and she was happy all the years we were married. I let out the breath I realized I had been holding. My second question was, why then? What changed? Why him? I know I should not have added the why him part. It was not on my list, but it just came out, probably my ego talking. She had anticipated this one too. She said that, with her therapist, they concluded it was a perfect storm of the kids gone, life winding down, turning 50, menopause, and she became anxious and restless, questioned her own worth and purpose, and needed some validation. The was there with lots of attention and flattering compliments that were exciting and new, and gave her feelings like when we first started dating. My fault for asking, why him? She craved the feeling and thrill. He was older, which made her feel younger and more desirable. Not sure I understand that one. Can any ladies explain? She became addicted to that high, and things spiraled out of control. She said that it wasn't anything special about the He just happened to be there at the right time, flirting and saying all those things. She insisted that none of that justified her poor decisions or actions, but only described her flawed state of mind at the time. She added that staying with me during the divorce was brutal for both of us, because she saw I was really trying, and she could barely look at or speak to me because of her guilt and shame, so she just avoided me as much as possible while under the same roof. She knew I was hurting, but her head and emotions were all mixed up, and she was too big a coward to talk to me. She always did avoid personal conflict. Her eyes were getting misty. Hearing all of that hurt a little. She saw the look on my face and apologized again. She wished she could erase everything, that I didn't deserve it, and that it was completely her fault. My third question was, why didn't you just tell me about the especially after we divorced? She said that she was a coward and ashamed and knew how illogical it all was, and she couldn't have explained it to me or anyone else. Our kids and friends found out in their own ways. She said that during our daughter's wedding it was obvious that I knew and obviously had not known before. She realized that I wouldn't even be friends with her anymore, and it hit her hard that she had lost me completely, probably forever. Also, the divorce threw a pall over our daughter's wedding, and she will never forgive herself for that. A tear fell to the table, and I handed her a tissue. Thanks to you guys for the advice to make a list and prepare for tears. My fourth question was, what was it that persuaded you to end a lifelong marriage for a 3-year affair? This one took her off guard. She took a gulp of wine and replied, that was never her intention. During the 6 months between the divorce and our daughter's wedding, while I was still friends with her, Things seemed okay because I was still in her life. But when I went no contact, everything changed. I would not communicate with her, nor were our kids at the time, nor were many of our friends, and the was the only one left for her. She said that they dated, but never lived together. That matches some bits of info I'd heard over the years. He even asked her to marry him several times, but she always refused. She said he was good to her, but she knew she would never love him like she loved me. Alm's grown daughter was sad that her father had been partly responsible for our breakup, and, in secret, urged my ex to stop dating her father and try to make amends with me. However, I wouldn't communicate, so my ex eventually went back to making something work with the He had retired shortly after our divorce and wanted to take her to exotic places around the world. She did go on a couple of trips with him, but didn't enjoy it. She got very depressed and had some dark thoughts about herself. She went to IC for months, and even got on antidepressants for a while. And that helped. This also matches roommates I heard years ago. She said she finally decided that she would rather gamble on the slight chance of becoming friends with me again, rather than date the B, but knew she couldn't do both. She chose the chance of a future friendship with me, and ended it completely with the She said she didn't have real feelings for him after all. Just lonely. She was disgusted with herself and very sad for everything she had ruined. She had tears trickling down her cheeks now. She apologized for the pain she caused me, and said that she would give anything if she could go back and do it all differently. Not just to keep me as her husband, but to prevent all of my heartache and upheaval to our family. I wadded up my list and threw it aside in a gesture. There were more questions, but they seemed moot at this point. I took her hand across the table and told her that I loved our life together and still care about her as parents and grandparents. But we've both changed. We can never be romantic again. No dates, no alone time, just family. She said she expected as much and understood. She said she knew that my trust and respect for her were long gone, and that she was tainted. But she would spend the rest of her life earning back my respect. She will be thankful if we can interact at family activities and maybe someday become friends. I got the impression that gaining my respect back was very important to her. She then said she had some questions for me. I hadn't thought of that. The first was, how did I get through all of this back then? I said that I almost didn't. She broke my heart and very nearly destroyed me. But our dog, the kids, and my friends helped. It actually felt good finally saying that to her out loud. She apologized again. We talked fondly of our late dog Max, and I told her about my recently adopted dog Jerry, not a puppy but a grown lab, which was less adoptable, but those sad eyes at the pound who could resist. She wants to meet him. We got Max as a puppy many years ago, and I knew she loved him like I did. She was happy I still had his ashes, so maybe she could say goodbye someday. I also told her I went to mandatory IC sessions, and he helped me with my hurt, anger, and new life goals. She did not know that and looked sorry. She knew I hadn't believed in such things before. Not sure a cheater realizes all the things victims endure behind the scenes in their wake. She then asked how I was able to cut contact with her so abruptly and completely, and for so many years. I must have really hated her. I said that it was not because I hated her or to punish her, but was for my own sanity and to help me move on. She admitted that my NC devastated her more than anything else. I did not tell her that the NC was hard on me too. It took discipline not to reach out to her every day, especially after her sad conciliatory voicemails those months after the daughter's wedding. I missed her terribly. She said that I should hate her for what she did, and when she heard that I was enjoying life and romancing other women, it drove her crazy. It's all she could think about, and she cried herself to sleep many nights, knowing I was likely with someone else. She believes she experienced the pain and loss I must have felt when I learned she was seeing another man, and it was really awful. She finally asked if there was anything she could do that could help me. I replied, no thanks, I'm good, but I wish you'd have asked me that 12 years ago. I quickly added, sorry. She just smiled and took it in stride. I said, okay, enough serious stuff. Time to eat. We talked and laughed and reminisced the rest of the evening over a 3-course meal. The manager held the food until my signal. He's one of my NFL game buddies. I do enjoy talking to my ex. We have so much history and memories. We talked about the grandkids, and she asked about my activities, and I asked about hers. I did ask her how she learned of my adventures, and she said that she got updates from a married couple that we are still friends with individually. The husband would brag about me to his wife, and his wife would pass it along to my ex. She asked if that made me uncomfortable and she could stop it, and I said, no problem, I have no secrets. Another dig, and she recognized it. I'm becoming a jerk. We reminisced and laughed for a couple of hours, and I enjoyed it. As we were leaving, she said, if you ever need someone, give me a call or stop by anytime. Damn, I think she just offered a booty call. No thanks. Our meetup stirred no intimate desires, and I'm pleased about that. I have moved on, like you guys said. I guess in my case 12 years is long enough to get to the cherished indifference mode. I hope she can find someone that will make her happy, and I even have a couple of good guys in mind, but I probably should just let that be. I deemed the meetup with my ex-wife a success. I feel much better and calmer because of it. It did feel a little one-sided, but she seemed sincere, and I didn't feel manipulated. You guys warned me about that. She sent me a long email the next day thanking me for dinner and my time. She said that if I ever have any questions about anything at all, she will answer. Also, she says she will meet me again anytime I want. Just give her an hour or so to get presentable since she's not a young girl anymore, her words. In her email, she also offered to send me a timeline she had prepared before our meeting, and that I might be surprised. I assumed this is a timeline of all the steps in her affair, like people mention here. I don't think that's important, as we are long divorced and will never be romantic again. I don't need it, but maybe it's something she needs to do. Maybe it's part of the cheater's recovery steps. I know she has read several books about infidelity. It's not that important to me exactly when she got physical with the Owa. She left me and our marriage and our kids for his affections. That's all that matters. I visited my daughter that Friday, and she and her mother had already talked. I told my daughter things went well, and after 12 years I think I can be friends with her mother, but not romantic. My daughter said that she didn't expect us to get back together, nor did Mom, but they would have been okay if that's what I wanted. My daughter and son are happy, my ex is happy, and I'm happy with our new arrangement. I'm glad that's finally done. I'm looking forward to us watching our grandkids grow and watching our kids being parents. I'll have the best of both worlds, and the more I can keep them separate, the better. One commenter mentioned that I'm looking at this backwards, that I got her all the best years of her life, and no one can ever have that again. Don't be sad for what you lost. Be thankful for what you had. He's right. All of this has helped me realize how truly blessed I've been and am. I'm humbled and can't thank you all enough. Your comments and advice actually determined the path I chose and opened my eyes to many issues. Trying to respond to your comments was clarifying for me. Nothing in it for you guys, but to help a stranger. The depth of wisdom and experience on this site is awesome. Hats off to you all. Wish I could buy all of you a beer, or wine, or shot, or CBD, or whatever. Live well and prosper. TLDR. My wife 62 female divorced me 62 male 12 years ago after 28 years of marriage and raising 2 wonderful children. 6 months after the divorce, I was still not over her. Then learned from my daughter at her bachelorette party that my ex-wife cheated just before the divorce and was still seeing the After 12 years, I had a meeting with her to discuss our relationship going forward. It went well. Update. When I posted originally, it was to tell my story, and I also think I was looking for permission to consider getting back with my ex. We had been exchanging info and pictures of the grandkids for nearly 5 years, and the last year she had been sprinkling in invitations for me to come over or to go on a date. I was strongly considering it and needed someone to agree. To my surprise, the comments weren't just "go for it" or "once a cheater, always a cheater," but were very thoughtful and serious and made me think hard about my replies. I slowly came to the conclusion that it might not be such a good idea after all. Thanks. Update. I ran into that counselor that helped me nearly 12 years ago, and we met the next evening at a local bar for some beers. Not as a counselor, but a friend. We hit it off back then and are both retired now, so no conflicts. He's bright and fun, but a recent widower, and is now going to be an NFL game watcher with us. Maybe I can be there for him now. Life just gets better. Update. I have asked both son and daughter separately about their upbringing and discipline. I may have been too strict. They both say they would not want to change anything. My son emphasized that he always knew exactly why he was being punished. Apparently a couple of his friends didn't always know, just anger. He wants to be a parent just like me. My daughter reminded me of the time on her first date. I borrowed a friend's car and followed them anonymously to make sure her date didn't try anything. I got discovered, and she was embarrassed and furious. But years later said that she thought it was sweet and knew I was just trying to protect her. They are great kids, and I'm very proud of them. Update. Thanks. I think you were right about only needing all the timeline details if we were trying to reconcile. I really don't want to see all that. It's kind of like not wanting to hear the details from your mom or your sister. I never had a sister. In fact, maybe I'm looking at my ex like a sister now. I think I would be okay with her dating other men as long as I know they are good guys. Update. You guys make me have to think hard about stuff. Yes, my ex-wife broke up with Anja, not the other way around. I kind of knew they never lived together, but I didn't know he asked her to marry him. But whatever. Yes, that does make me feel a little better. The thought that I did something wrong bugged me all these years until our meeting. No, I guess I didn't do anything wrong. But all the same, I wish I would have been more emotionally open during our marriage. About being non-exclusive. I might have been afraid of committing for fear of being hurt again. Maybe. I think a few of my lady friends would like to be exclusive. But I can't seem to pull that trigger. A couple of them would be good choices. Update. Yes, I feel better knowing all this new information about what happened 12 years ago. But it makes thoughts and feelings more complicated, not less. Everything was simpler just a few months ago. I guess life isn't always simple. I now want my old friend back, my ex. Not romantically, but to talk with. Maybe have a meeting every month or two. Not for affair talk, but just friend talk. I know that goes beyond family events, but stops short of dating. A Reddit commenter warned me about my feelings when she starts dating other men again. I said I would be okay. Yesterday, a good friend with experience advised me that no matter what I think now, it will affect me when it happens, whether I actually see them out together or not. Guess I need to brace myself for that. Thanks. Update. Several have asked about me being exclusive with someone again, and it's a fair question. Dedicating myself to one person again would not be a simple decision, but a change in a philosophy that I have become comfortable with. At first, it was probably a subconscious protective mechanism. Now it's a freedom that would be hard to give up. When a lady friend calls, I can go have dinner with her, or go to some event with her, or help her move around furniture, or be a handyman, or stay overnight, all without worrying about the implications to anyone else. Same if I call one of them. I've been told that as I get older, my requirements and needs will change. I guess so. Just the other day, my son joked that he can imagine me and his mother in the rest home sitting next to each other in our wheelchairs, feeding each other dinner. Made me smile. Update. Wow, you guys are awesome. My mind has been all over the place lately, but I think you hit on something. I had grieved about the betrayal of my wife and lover and mother of my children, but not my best friend. After 12 years, that's what I miss the most. But that part, best friend, betrayed me too. She still wanted to be friends after she divorced me from being my wife and lover. Not sure I'm describing it right. More to throw into this pile of facts and emotions. Thanks for your insight. Update. After I talked to my daughter about me and her mom's meeting, I asked her some questions about how things happened back then after the divorce. Daughter said that not long after she and her husband got back from their honeymoon, she called her mother in anger on a bad day about what she did to me and to her wedding, and that she never wanted to speak to her again. I'm sure that destroyed my ex-wife. I asked when she started speaking with her mother again, and she said that after mom broke up with the her mother became unrelenting in trying to communicate with her daughter. Our son had 2 little kids by then, and his mother was already visiting them and helping out. The daughter finally responded to repeated emails and texts from mom, and it slowly built over the years. When my daughter became pregnant, her mother went into full mother mode and wanted to do everything, and she did. I sort of assumed this, but didn't know the details. So no, my daughter did not influence my ex-wife to break up with the Everything was after. As for my ex-wife dating, I'm in an odd predicament. I've given this a lot of thought. I want her to be happy with a good guy. But if I saw her with a guy that I didn't think was so good, I'd feel compelled to protect her. I'm okay with her dating, but I want to know or vet the suitor. I know, pretty messed up. Update. You all may be right, but I got the strong vibe that my ex-wife and daughter are being truthful. However, I've sent out some feelers among my friends and hers to try and verify her version of events over the years. So far, everything checks out. If I learn differently, I'll deal with it then. Update. Yes, I don't think I could have been friends with my ex until all these years passed. I will never forget what she did, but now I don't think of her as a bad person, but a good person who did a bad thing and has suffered and is suffering. I don't feel for her romantically. That's gone, but I still care. Update. Rough night. Not sure why exactly. I'm home alone normal and have had many hard drinks not so normal. Maybe replying to comments here and the meeting with the ex is all beginning to get to me. I think I'll queue up Dark Side of the Moon and In a Gata da Vida and listen in the dark and chill for a while. That's my mood. Update. I survived last night. Had too many drinks and got very melancholy about everything. I think meeting with the ex-wife affected me more than I thought. Lots of new to me information to think about. Hate to admit I had a cry last night from all this. Hadn't done that since the divorce 12 years ago. Not really sure how to navigate this now. NC was hard but simple to do. I fear having my friend back will not be so simple, even as only a friend. Update. I've been thinking a lot about my ex, our meeting, and what it all means for me and for her, and even the kids and grandkids. I'll admit I look forward to seeing her again, no matter the venue. I went to a dinner theater with a lady friend last weekend scheduled months ago and enjoyed it. But I felt a little guilty and detached, she noticed. Not sure if I can maintain 2 separate lives. My ex's personality and beauty are alluring even at our age. I thought I would be okay with her dating another guy if that happened. But now I'm not so sure. How do things get so complicated? Update. We had a birthday party for our oldest grandson yesterday at my house, because all the grandkids have room to run around outside and play here. It's the first time my ex-wife has ever been to my house. She wanted to see everything, including what she called my famous man cave. After dinner, I was taking all the grandchildren for a ride on the ATV, and she asked if I would take her for a ride after everyone got their turn. That surprised me, not like her at all, but I did. We had a long ride on some back trails in the woods I'd made over the years. She held on tight and felt good. Lots of fun, and the kids and their spouses were grinning ear to ear when we finally returned. When we put the ATV away, she sat on my Harley and asked when she could get a ride on it. That shocked me even more. I told her it would have to wait till spring. It was a great day for everyone. She's great with the grandkids, and they are drawn to her, as am I. Some questioned if I could enjoy family events with her. Yes. Update. Some suggested that I am being manipulated. It does not feel like that. It feels genuine to me. However, the more I'm around her, the more I question my indifference. If she started dating someone else, I thought I would be okay. But maybe I'm just fooling myself. What a mess. Update. I did some research by questioning my daughter and some common friends about guys my ex-wife dated after the It seems she went out, but always with the girls or as part of a group. Never on a date alone with a man. I know I shouldn't care, not my business. But I can't seem to keep it out of my head. Update. In short, I think I'm falling in love with my ex-wife. Don't want that, but can't seem to help it. I don't enjoy time with my lady friends as much now. I feel a little guilty, and they notice. They are smart ladies. I'm becoming more secretive so my ex won't find out, because I think it would hurt her. I knew it would hurt me if she did the same. We talked last weekend after having dinner in a nice restaurant with the Kinds and spouses. They all left around 8:30 to relieve the babysitters, and the ex and I stayed for a few hours, just talking and laughing. I caught myself trying to impress her, like when we were dating. I know she now has the power to hurt me again. That is, if she started dating other men, I'd be devastated just like before, and I told her so. She came around the table and hugged me and said that would never happen. Even if we never got back together, she was mine and would never date anyone else ever again. How do you react to that? Ex is making a big midday dinner for the daughter and Dill for Mother's Day this Sunday with spouses and asked me to come. That I could stay after and talk or whatever. Supposed to be warm and nice, so I plan to ride the Harley over and take her for a ride if she wants. She also has asked if I would take her up in my plane. I have my FA medical for at least another year, so yes. She has a fear of flying, but says she trusts me, and if I talk to her about what's happening, she will be okay. This is a big deal. The last 12 years have been fun and rewarding, but not the same as being with her. Still not sure what to do now exactly. I'm a strong-willed guy, but feel weak about her. Had some drinks with friends this afternoon, so sorry for the rant. One friend was divorced last year and wished his ex had a good attitude like mine. Life is hard in limbo, which is where I am right now. Can't seem to pull the trigger, one way or the other. Update. Just talked with my old counselor who helped me 12 years ago. Not as a therapist, but now as a friend. He's always clear about that. He said that at this point in my life, maybe I should follow my heart. Whatever would make me happy, and not overanalyze everything. He says I probably already know what I want. I just won't acknowledge it yet in my analytical personality. I know he became a widower a couple of years ago, so that's probably a factor. Am I overanalyzing his advice? Maybe he's right. Maybe I'll know better after this Sunday Mother's Day. Update. Okay, I just finished Not Just Friends last night. Not an easy read, but wow. Women obsess and men repress. We definitely did that, and apparently it's somewhat common. The situations and all the psychology rang true, even for me. I had workplace interactions over the years that I now see were dangerous. I never acted on them, but I can see how easily things could develop over time without even trying or intending. Also, don't give up and communicate. We didn't communicate as well as we should have, which is the most important of all. We talked during our marriage and even after the divorce, but we had walls. Then I went NC and closed all the windows. Every couple should read this book, even if their relationship is good. I don't think I'm going to ask to remain friends with any of my lady friends. If I'm going to be with my ex, it must be 100%. I do trust her, and I want her to always trust me too. I don't want her to worry about my lady friends. Ex-lady friends. I will talk with her about it in any case. We're off to a wedding this afternoon. Update. We were all dressed up after getting back from the wedding, so we decided to go out for a nice dinner. She looked great as usual. She really is beautiful, and I've always been proud in public with her on my arm. Still am. We sat down and had easy conversation about the wedding and the friends and family that attended, and a little gossip, and how people must be talking about us being there as a couple. When we finished eating, I asked if we could talk about my ex-lady friends. She smiled at the ex adjective, and said it would be a good idea, and was glad I brought it up. I told her that I would not be having contact with any of them anymore, and I will tell them so and why. Also, that I was never exclusive with any of them, never planned to get serious with any of them, and never once told any of them that I loved them all true. I think she was caught by surprise. I grabbed her hand and continued that none of them measured up to you, and I have decided that, if you'll have me, I'm committed to you from now on. She was crying now, so I stopped. But after a few moments I got nervous and asked if she had anything to say. She finally got out. No, you're doing just fine. She excused herself to go to the ladies' room, probably to get herself together and freshen up. She was in there for quite a while. But when she got back, she said she knew I was good friends with some of those women and sometimes helped them with things. Are you sure you want to give that up? Because she didn't think it was necessary. It turns out she knows who these women are, not personally, but about them of course she does. She said that they are respected women, not tarts or gold diggers. If I wanted to continue a non-physical friendship with them, she understands. In fact, she asked to come with me to talk with them, so they'd know she's okay with them being friends. I told her that there were 2 ladies that I might like to remain friends with, but didn't want to ever make her worry or feel uncomfortable. And if she ever feels the least bit uncomfortable, just say so, and I will stop contact immediately. We discussed more in general about what kinds of things would be okay and some that would make her anxious. She said she would like to think about it some before discussing boundaries for her too. But that's the main of it. I was pleased. In my truck on our way home from the restaurant, she smiled and jokingly said, "You know that if it ever goes beyond friendship with one of them, I'll kill you." I said, "Same goes, I'd kill you too," and we laughed about it. Who would have ever thought last fall that we'd be laughing about this in May? I did tell her about the Not Just Friends book, and she's going to check it out from the library. She had heard of it but hadn't read it, so she'll probably download it as an ebook to her tablet tomorrow. Anxious to hear what she thinks then. She invited me in for a drink when I dropped her off, so I did. We're more relaxed and easy now. You can feel it. No more eggshells or limbo. I was in a playful mood and teased that if her talking to the lady friends with me was really to approve friendships or just to intimidate them into staying away. She just smiled and winked. I'm going to assume she was just joking. God, how can you not love this woman? She's the original, whole package. She hinted about me staying over, but I went home after a goodnight kiss. I needed to feed and check on Jerry anyway my lab and take pills. She offered to come and help me and I assumed stay overnight, but I'm just not ready for that. This is going really well, and I don't want to screw it up. I think we need more alone time and cuddling before that, but maybe someday. For me, this is a whole new relationship, not a continuation of our previous one. I invited the kids and grandkids for Memorial Day at my place, and they've both accepted, even with a short notice. Invited ex-wife, I'll call her Jane and I'll be Tarzan, and she's bringing some side dishes. I'm going to grill for them and their families, and for my analyst friend and his 2 grandkids. Should be total chaos, but I can't wait. Update. Memorial Day cookout went great. I had put small flags up and down my driveway and the back patio. I wore a WW2 pilot uniform I had from the years I assisted with an annual airshow. I was never in the military and played patriotic and military music in the background. And we tried to teach the older grandkids about why we have a Memorial Day. After cleanup and everyone else went home, Jane, my ex, and I sat out back with some wine, enjoying the quiet and talking about the day and the grandkids. She eventually said that she had been thinking about our boundaries. I told her that I'm glad she is thinking about it, and we will discuss it. But not right now if that's okay. We both just relaxed, which is what I was hoping for. I did take the risk to ask her about some of the fun things she did over the past 12 years. It turns out she had done some cool stuff, including some very large, highly promoted events, and had met and worked with several famous people. One of her girlfriends has a pontoon boat on a local lake, and the 4 girlfriends would go out for a whole day and picnic and drink wine and play Scrabble and gossip and have a great time. I asked if they ever got wolf whistled from guys, and she admitted yes a few times and seemed embarrassed. I told her that if I saw her out there in a bathing suit, I would sure whistle. Also, she became part of an informal dinner and a movie group that went to dine then to watch a movie in a theater or a play on a stage. I teased if there were any men in the group, and she said yes, but it wasn't like that. Then, when grandkids came along, more of her focus went to them. I asked if she would like us to go on some of these dinner and movie group outings, and she was surprised. It's not the kind of thing I would have enjoyed while we were married. She answered yes, of course, couples attending is common, but joked that I am not welcome on the boat with the girls. She asked the same of me, and I told her about some of my fun things, but without talking about the lady friends that sometimes were involved in doing them. She knew about the more exciting things, but not about smaller things like fishing in my neighbor's pond, or monthly poker with the guys' dime and quarter stuff, or the local fly-ins, or lunch trips on the Harley, or even that I went to the opera once. The first thing she asked after all that was, "You went to the opera?" I said it wasn't that bad, but one viewing will last me for some time. Then she asked if I could take her fishing at the pond sometime. I was surprised because she would have never considered that before. I'll take her, and it is calming, but sitting there in the weeds with the bugs and mosquitoes watching a bobber will not be her cup of tea. But I love her for wanting to try. She also asked if we could ride the Harley since it's so warm. But it was extremely windy 1525 kts, so I told her it would not be a very fun or safe ride. She mentioned our boundaries discussion, and I said that I'm not worried about it because it's mostly common sense stuff anyway. Transparency, no secrets, and seeing things through your partner's eyes. We can get into the details another time. She said okay, so my place is still a sanctuary from the serious relationship stuff. We went inside, and I asked if she wanted to watch a movie. She said yes, so I handed her the 3D glasses and started the original Top Gun in 3D. When the intro scene appeared and the Top Gun anthem music started, she was blown away and made me hit pause. She almost cried that I had set all this up for her. We had popcorn and wine and watched the whole movie, and even cuddled through the last half of it. I promised I would take her to the new one Maverick sometime this week. It was pretty late by then, and she was tired and had been drinking some during the day and into the evening, and she and the daughter and Dill had been testing peach vodka at one point. I asked if she would like to stay in my spare room tonight. She quickly accepted and went to her car to get her overnight kit. It looks like she came prepared. We had our now standard goodnight kiss and hug, and she went into the spare room. It has its own bathroom. Guess I'll be making breakfast for 2 tomorrow morning. A very good day. Typing all this stuff out and posting it probably seems petty, but it's soothing for me. Update. Well, I stopped by her place tonight early to take her to the new Top Gun movie. She asked if I would like to come in and have a drink and snack before the movie, because the theater is just a few blocks from her condo, walking distance. We got to talking and ended up not going to the movie after all. I had read the timeline she sent me in a spreadsheet. She listed everything back to her first meeting of the Alm years ago. Nothing notable for years, then she started into her weird phase, as he was complimenting her and taking her to dinner and drinks after business events. Not unusual in the events industry, which is a little like the sales culture. She listed all the steps. Compliments, dinner, flirting, heavier flirting, then our divorce, then dating, then my NC, then intimacy, then huge regret, then counseling, then her dropping him and concentrating on me. During their last couple of years, they only dated occasionally and were no longer intimate. After a couple of drinks, I asked her some questions about her timeline, some very personal questions, and about the intimacy, and she cried but answered. It hurt, but was not as bad as I had imagined all these years. I made her cry, and we were already emotional, so I offered her anything she wanted to know, which is fair. Wow, that was intense. She seemed more interested in my feelings for them than the actual physical details. Like, did climbing a mountain with that woman make me closer to her? How did we celebrate? She did ask if there were things they did for me that she hadn't. I was as respectful and honest as I could, but it was very uncomfortable. We never talked about that kind of stuff when we were married. She seemed most interested in why they made me happy, not necessarily in bed, but in general. She mentioned a couple of times that she knew she was the cause of all of this and was sorry. And she does not blame me. But that may have been to get me to open up more. We did this for nearly 3 hours, and I became exhausted, at least emotionally. I think she was too, so I asked if I could take her to dinner. She said she would prefer to just stay in. We made a quick and easy shrimp and pasta dish with salads. Things were a little tense at first, but got easier, and we eventually settled and even cuddled while we watched the movie, always a very good movie. I need to schedule viewing Top Gun at the theater another day. She offered her spare bedroom again, but I said I needed to get home. I was mentally exhausted from all the serious talk and needed to be in my place alone. When I left, she asked, "Are we good?" And I said, "We're good. Talk to you tomorrow." I have the feeling that there may be another session or two like that. I can't say I'm looking forward to it, but whatever it takes. Did not get a chance to even mention a camper trip yet. A couple of days ago, YouTube suggested a video of Robert Palmer's Simply Irresistible, and I clicked on it. Jane could have been a substitute for any of those girls. That's her, except Jane smiles, and those girls didn't. She's aged more now, of course, but if you watch, you'll know what I'm dealing with. If she were ugly, would I be this invested? I don't know, but I do want her to be mine again. Good night. Update. Well, I'm heading to Jane's place this evening Friday. I was drinking with a couple of buddies last night, and Robert Palmer's Simply Irresistible came up. One of them reads my posts. He says that, in his opinion, that song is about all the plastic surgery in the 80s. She used to look good to me, but now I find her simply irresistible. Also, she's so fine, there's no tellin' where the money went, which means it went to her various alterations and enhancements. Also, the girls in the background all look the same, which signifies the generic perfect girl, even if made that way. I thought I was into music, but this guy goes way deeper than me into the meaning of songs. I talked with my wedding crasher lady friend, one of the two that I would like to stay friends with. She called. I described to her that Jane and I were dating again. She was not surprised. She said she always knew my ex-wife was still in my head, and that was okay. We had lots of fun times, and she enjoyed me and hopes things work out. But if not, I asked if we could still be friends, and if I could still help her with things, and she said she would like that. If Jane is okay with it, you're a good guy, and good luck. The other lady friend is a friend of hers, and I know they talk, so that part may be done. Tonight, I'm going to ask Jane about a scamp camping trip, and see how that's received. Not sure what she has planned for the evening, but looking forward to it. I have to remind myself we're in our 60s, not kids anymore. Update. Life just gets better. I went to Jane's place last night. When I arrived, she opened her door with a purse in hand and said, "Let's go." Her neighbor was ready with his rear car door open, and we got in. I'd never met him, but I know he and his wife have been Jane's neighbors for years, and Jane sometimes watched their kids for them. They are a much younger couple. I tried to ask where we were going, and she shushed me and said, "You'll see." We drove to the baseball stadium. I used to love to attend baseball games, but hadn't gone in many years. She had some great seats reserved down in the box area for me and her neighbor. I guess it pays to have contacts in the event business. Her neighbor wasn't just our chauffeur. He was also our attendant and got us drinks, ballpark dogs, and souvenirs, and he knew baseball and the players, and we all bantered throughout the game. I loved it. When the game was over, he brought the car around and picked us up. I think it takes a special pass to do that. We rode in the back seat again, and even snuggled a little on the way home. When we got back inside Jane's place, he invited his wife over, and we all had a nice drink together. Good people, and I'm glad they are living there next to Jane. When her neighbors left, I stayed for a bit. I was anxious to spring the possible scamping trip idea on her, but the subject of talking to the ex-lady friends came up first. I told her that they were already notified, or one was, and I'm sure the other will know soon. She seemed pleased. She handed me a folded sheet of paper and said she had written down her thoughts about boundaries, and I could read it later. Okay. I then asked her what she thought about pull-behind campers. She looked confused, and I then asked if she would like to take a camping trip with me, maybe out west, maybe out east, wherever. I expected a reaction, but not this. She said, "Are you serious?" When I nodded, she burst up from her side of the couch and practically attacked me with hugs. Yes, yes, yes. When can we go? When can she see the camper? Does it have a bathroom? I showed her what a 16 scamp looks like on my phone, and we settled down and started talking about logistics, and she ran and grabbed her Rand McNally, and we started debating various destinations. She was so excited. We discussed traveling daily versus finding a good site and staying for several days at a time. Does it have a stove, or will we cook outside? Does it have a refrigerator? She didn't ask how many beds. It got pretty late, and I agreed to stay in her spare room for the night. I called my nearest neighbor and had him check on Jerry. He works a late shift and is a late night guy. Thanks, leadership_48, for your mention of a getaway. I'm excited about it too. What a night. I woke this morning in her spare room to the smell of breakfast cooking. I could get used to this. She had maps all over the table with things circled and was excited about the trip. I knew she would plan the whole thing when we decide where we're going. Love this woman. Females are even more attractive when they're so happy and full of life. It's supposed to be a nice day today, so she's coming over this afternoon for a ride on the Harley. Nothing scary, just a nice calm ride on some tame back roads to get her used to it. I know an ice cream and custard shop, just a short ride away. Also, when I got home and changed clothes, I remembered to read the piece of paper she gave me last night about our boundaries with others. All it said was, "I trust you, and you can trust me." Wow, that's better than any list of boundaries, and even more effective. I called her about it, and she said she had thought a lot about lists of do's and don'ts, and it got far too tedious and unnecessary. She said when I had told her previously, it was mostly just common sense. It struck a chord with her. I can still remember my dad saying, "You're a good boy, we trust you," each time before I went out as a teenager. That was more effective than monitoring, warnings, or anything else to stay away from bad things. He was a very wise man. I'm going to suggest we take the camper on a local 1 or 2 night trial run before finalizing our plans and heading off cross country. Being able to share these moments with you guys lets me relive them by trying to describe them properly. Once or twice I've caught myself thinking, I can't wait to tell you guys when something cool is happening. Not sure if that's healthy, but thanks. Update. Well, Jane came over this afternoon, and I had the Harley ready. I gave her a new helmet, and it actually fit. I told her all about the Harley, and what does what and what to expect, hoping to lower her fears. I also made sure she knew we weren't going to do anything scary or risky, and we could stop or turn back anytime she wanted. We took off and headed out on the country roads, nice and slow. She was a little apprehensive at first, but by the time we got to the custard place, she was pretty good. It turns out there were several young couples there on crotch rockets, and Jane ended up talking to some of the girls for over 30 minutes. Not sure what they talked about, but I assume it mostly had to do with riding on motorcycles. Some of them left when we did and rode with us for a few miles, and Jane seemed more relaxed and even pointed out some nice scenery. By the time we got home, I was getting a little more aggressive on the curves, and she was actually laughing. It was a huge success. When back at my place, we discussed when we were going to reschedule the Top Gun movie, and I said that I have a couple of friends that would like to see it too, along with their wives. Jane said that she also knew a lady who wanted to see it, but didn't want to go by herself. We're going to go this Friday, and I'm going to call my analyst friend to see if he wants to go with our group too. Jane thought that would be a great idea. She's a matchmaker. We talked more about our trip, and she has some relatives near Reno, Nevada Carson she hasn't seen for years. I knew them and liked them. We're thinking Rocky Mountain National Park, Yosemite National Park, and maybe Sequoia National Park too. We're heading over to my brother's tomorrow to look at the 16 Scamp Camper. We'll see how well Jane likes it when she sees how small it is, although it is much better than a tent. Things are moving fast, but it all seems good. Update 11. Jane and I watched 2 of the grandkids at her place yesterday till late afternoon. Great fun. We both love being with them, even though I've seen the same animated movies and played the same games with them dozens of times now. They are changing month to month, growing up fast. We went over to my brother's to see the 16-year-old camper afterwards. I think Jane thought it would be bigger, but she was still excited. When my brother and his wife went back to the house to get some paperwork, Jane looked at me and asked, "Just one bed?" I shrugged and said, "Looks like it." She smiled big and said, "I'm good with that, are you?" I just said we'll make it work. Of course the camper was loaded with all the options. That's my brother. We got instructions on all the various appliances and 12 volts and propane and 110 volts. It even has a tiny shower in the bathroom. But we decided we would probably stay at a hotel every few days to shower instead. We laid on the bed to make sure it was long enough for me. It is. But she was practically giddy just laying there. She kept saying, "This is going to be so great." We hitched it to my pickup and checked the lights out. And I'm going to keep it in the shed at my place until we leave. Maybe we'll stay in it a couple of nights before leaving, so we can determine the things we'll need while still local. Jane has already bought several items just for the trip. I have an appointment Tuesday evening to go visit one of the lady friends, the wedding crasher gal. She will be getting a new laptop that day and wants me to help her back up and transfer all her data, set up her applications on the new computer, and get it to talk with her Wi-Fi, etc. I've done this before, but usually with her saying, "Since you're here." I know that sounds like payment for services, but it never felt like that. I asked her if Jane could come too, and she said that would be great. She would make snacks or dinner or whatever we wanted. I asked Jane, and she said yes, of course. I think this kind of thing with my lady friends is going to work out okay. I'd like them to become Jane's friends too, but maybe that's asking too much. I'm a bit apprehensive about sleeping in the same bed as Jane Camper. Not sure why. When I was a young man dating, I would have moved heaven and earth to be in this situation. But now I'm just a bit nervous. That's probably a good thing. Update 12. Went to one of my ex-lady friends' place this evening to give some computer help. I was a little apprehensive, but it went well. Jane came with me, and the lady friend had one of her male friends there too. He wanted to pick up some technical pointers on computers, and she wanted him to learn, probably to replace me. In any case, he's bright and seems like a good guy. I like him. Also, him being there kept anyone from feeling like a third wheel. It took a few hours, and we had sandwiches and drinks, and it was relaxed. Jane seemed good, but on the way home she said, "She's very pretty and smart, isn't she?" I thought for a moment, then said, "Yes, but she doesn't compare to you." Must have been the right words, because she leaned over and put her head on my shoulder. I think she was smiling. Feels like another hurdle crossed. Menopause. Until recently, I had not really cared about menopause or midlife crises or how that could have played into our divorce. Now it seems more important, and I wanted to know, so I've been doing some research. It turns out there is an actual term called the gray divorce. Well over 60% of divorces during menopausal years are initiated by the wife. And that doesn't count the divorces initiated by the husbands because of emotional distress caused by the wife's emotional changes. Levels of oxytocin, which is a feel-good hormone, are lowered during menopause because it's no longer needed for raising the family unit. And some doctors claim that the lack of oxytocin changes a woman's thinking from a we mindset to a me mindset. Also, their identity has been deeply intertwined with that of their spouse and family, and they perceive themselves as just a part of a unit with little control, as opposed to an authentic individual, and their need to break out can become intense. When we're younger, children and careers make it easy to focus on common goals. Reaching the ends of our careers plus an empty nest plus a lack of oxytocin all combined puts everything up for grabs. Is my life over? Can I ever be me again? One expert says that some people, especially midlife women, may be happy but just don't feel happy, so they crave a change. Another says that this is exacerbated by all the social media and the new cultural expectations about women. They cannot be happy or have value unless they are independent. Are these theories correct? Who knows, but several of these symptoms and Jane's actions during that time do match up. It makes me wonder, and maybe I'll ask her about that sometime. Update 13. Well, Jane and I spent the night in the Scamp Camper last night. Things went pretty well. This was planned before she came, so I already had the camper set up back by the woods, 100 yards or so away from the buildings. No electricity except the RV battery, which was plenty for lights and fans and USB phone chargers and a water pump. Nights are still comfortable here, so no air conditioning is needed, and with the windows open, the honeysuckle smells good this time of year. After a few drinks and snacks on the patio, we finally retired out to the camper. I know we should have discussed cohabitating first, but we didn't, and I didn't have the guts or even know how to bring it up. We went into the camper and brushed our teeth and washed up a little, then got ready for bed. I was nervous. She already had her summer bedclothes on under her clothes, and I kept my t-shirt and boxers on so there was no naked things getting ready. However, watching her, I was attracted to her physically, and it was obvious by the time she crawled in beside me. I think she noticed, and I'm pretty sure that pleased her. We turned out the light and laid there, adjusting the blankets for a bit and saying our goodnights, and she eventually started rubbing my leg with her foot. It felt nice, but I finally said, "I don't think I'm ready for that." She said, "That's okay. Remember all the times I said that to you when we were dating?" What a quick-witted lady. I smiled at her and rolled over, a little embarrassed in my state. She cuddled up and spooned behind me and said, "This is good too." For some reason, the thought popped into my head of a phrase me and my buddies used to say as teenagers. The only thing that would turn my stomach is a pair of warm boobs in my back. I chuckled slightly, couldn't help it, and she asked, "What?" I told her, and after a couple of moments she got it, giggled, and said, "We'll see about that," and snuggled a little tighter. We both got to laughing and couldn't stop. The tension dissolved. We tossed and turned some throughout the night, and had to untangle ourselves from the covers once, but pretty good for two people who were used to sleeping alone. I woke up first and put some coffee on to perk. When she woke, I was looking at her, and she smiled and stretched, and I just wanted to grab her. But I controlled myself and just said, "Good morning, gorgeous," which is cheesy, but I used to say that. I asked her if I snored because I recall her gently pushing on my shoulder sometime during the night. She said it was not snoring, but more like loud breathing. Is there a difference? And she said she didn't want to wake me, but just to make me shift slightly, and it worked. She asked if she snored, and I said no. "But you talk in your sleep." She was surprised and a little concerned, but I added that it was just some mumbling and nothing discernible. I had stocked the little fridge with some breakfast supplies, so we cooked a small breakfast in the camper just to prove we could. We converted the bed into the dinette table configuration and ate inside also. I had stocked champagne and orange juice and made us mimosas to celebrate. She was happy, and so was I. Yes, I think we can live in the camper for a trip, even in poor weather. It does have limited space, but that's part of the fun. Going out with Jane and a group of friends to finally see the new Top Gun movie this afternoon Friday. Then Jane is coming over again to spend another trial run night in the camper, her idea. Too much too fast. As John Goodman said in the movie Always, there's only ever been two kinds. Flash fires, where there's all flame, and they burn themselves out and leave nothing. Then there's the long burn. Even when you think it's out, it's still warm to the touch. Are we that long burned? With one night down and another happening tonight, I'm pretty pumped about our trip. We canceled our dinner theater reservation and some other engagements, so we're getting ourselves footloose and fancy-free. Our kids are very supportive. I had promised myself and you guys to keep it slow and steady, but after last night and this morning, I'm not sure how long I can maintain that. I want her to know that I'm committed to her, but I don't want to seem needy or become a beta like I was 12 years ago. Pick me dance. It's not a good look for a man and doesn't feel good either. We've got something good going here. Would intimacy change that? I don't want to mess this up. Update 14. Went to see the new Top Gun movie yesterday afternoon. Wow, I haven't been to a newer movie theater in years. Very cool. After the movie, we all went to Jane's place for drinks and to debrief about the film. Her place was nearby. One of my friends is also a private pilot, and I was anxious to hear everyone's opinion. Thumbs up all around. If you remember, it's entertainment and not a documentary. Also, I think I overheard my analyst friend and Jane's friend discussing dinner. I don't know when. Maybe that same evening. While we were at Jane's place, her doorbell rang, and she went to get it. I could see from my spot on the deck through the house and to the front door. A man stood there, an attractive younger man. She beamed at him and spoke a few words, then went to get something and gave him a folder. They spoke and hugged, and she closed the door and came back out to the deck, as if nothing had happened. I felt shaken and jealous, and my mind was racing. Guess I went a little possessive caveman there. Who was this man? Why was he at her door? And they seemed to be so familiar and friendly. Why didn't she mention him when she returned? Is she hiding something? I didn't say anything, but would have to ask her later. When we got to my place, and we sat on the patio snacking and waiting until bedtime to go to the camper, she said, "Okay, what's wrong? You haven't been yourself since the movie." I started to respond and realized I was shaken more than I thought. Me? So who was that man? Her? What man? Me. The one you hugged in your doorway today. Her? Oh, that. Then she proceeded to tell me how he worked for her old company, and she was his mentor for years, and she had written up a recommendation and some contacts for him for a job at a larger company in a different city. He came by to pick them up and was very appreciative, and they both knew they probably wouldn't see each other again, so he was thanking her for everything and saying goodbye. She apologized and said it didn't even occur to her what that might look like to someone else, especially me. I felt silly, but OMG, is this what she feels when I interact with a lady friend? Even when completely innocent. I asked her about my female friends and told her I never want to put her through the feelings I experienced today. I don't need female friends. She says not to worry. We'll figure it out. I told her I was sorry for jumping to conclusions and being so jealous. She said it's actually sort of flattering and makes her feel special. Then poking her finger into my chest with each word, she said, I don't want anyone but you. Got that, mister? Yes, ma'am. She always knows just what to say. We went to the camper and got ready just like last night. I was not nervous this time. While laying there in the dark, she said she was a little sad that my first thought was that she had something going with someone else. But she knows she caused this years ago. We talked about trust, and I talked about the pain of thinking I wasn't good enough, and it got pretty emotional there for a while. We agreed to always say when something is bothering us, no matter how small or how personal. We talked about all kinds of things for an hour or two. The more we talked, the more I realized that nearly all of the drama we've had since our initial meeting in January has been because of me, not her. During our marriage, I was always the calm, stable one. Now Jane is stable, and my emotions seem all over the place. I mentioned this to her, and she says she loved the old me, but likes the new me too, because we can talk about anything. We fell asleep snuggling again, and repeated our morning routine like before. I'm taking her to a retirement party tonight that may run pretty late. We both know the lady retiring. But Jane asked if we could stay in the camper again tomorrow night. Things are good, and I don't feel our relationship is so fragile anymore. Haven't set a departure date for our trip yet, but we're getting it all planned out. I'm okay with just taking off and seeing where the road takes us, but I know that would drive Jane crazy. Edit. This is just a small update, and not really worth a separate post. We went to the retirement party last night, and really enjoyed ourselves. There were lots of old friends, and everyone seemed happy to see us together. Early on, one of my ex-lady friends XLF came up to Jane and me and introduced herself to Jane, but said nothing to me. I didn't even know this XLF knew the retiring lady. The XLF and Jane exchanged pleasantries, and then she told Jane, "Glad to see you're back with your husband. He's a fun guy." Like I wasn't even standing there. Jane said, "Yes, I'm a lucky woman." After XLF walked away, I asked Jane what that was all about, and did it bother her? She said, "Nope, I have you, and she doesn't. Don't worry about it." Great party. We stayed overnight at her place, in her bed, and snuggled like we did in the camper. All is good. Update 15. Well, I proposed to Jane last night on my patio before we went to the camper for the night. I went down on one knee and simply asked if she would marry me, no prelude, ring, or anything other than having some appropriate background music playing. She sat there stunned for a moment, then stared at me and realized that I was serious. She lunged forward and literally knocked me over. Ouch. I have a sore and bruised shoulder to show for it, but worth it. She was kissing my face all over, and of course Jerry, my lab, joined in with us. She never did say yes, but I got the idea. We got ourselves up and brushed off, and she said that was the last thing she ever expected tonight. But dreams really do come true. If you could have anything you wanted type of thing. She was so excited, she was practically vibrating in place. She mentioned calling the kids, but I said we need to figure out some logistics first. I told her about getting married in Nevada during the trip, and I wanted her but wanted to wait until we were married again. And she said, "Okay, but I want you bad." Made me feel good. I do love this woman. I know she will insist on planning the when and where and everything else. After an hour or so of talking, planning, and settling down, we decided to call the kids. On speakerphone, we called daughter first. Daughter was so happy she cried. I took the phone off speaker and handed it to Jane so she could talk to her daughter in private. Jane was in tears when they hung up, but all smiles. We then called son. He was more reserved but said, "Dad, you and Mom belong together. I'm happy for you guys." I said thanks, son, that his blessing is all I needed. He even offered to travel to Nevada to stand up with me if I wanted. We both thanked him, but that it wasn't necessary. I took the phone off speaker again and handed it to Jane to talk to son. Jane was smiling when they hung up, so I think all is well. Everything feels perfect, no doubts, no regrets, and Jane is walking on air. Me too. It looks like we're leaving on Thursday, 3 days from now. Son and daughter texted and want to bring champagne Wednesday evening to celebrate and see us off. I think my brother and his wife may come also, if his wife feels up to it. MS, still soaking it all in, but holy cow, how can I be so blessed? Where will we live when we get back? How will our lives change? We agreed we would discuss all this in detail during the trip. I literally can't wait to marry this woman. I'd leave tomorrow if we could. Edit. Yes, she still has her wedding ring set. And I have my old wedding band. So we're all set there. Update 16. We leave tomorrow morning. Jane had too much champagne and is very happy celebrating and is already in bed. My bed. I'm sitting here without my dog. but with a dram of good scotch, contemplating my situation. I can't imagine better. The camper is all hooked up and serviced. I've got my Garmin, and Jane has her big Rand McNally map book all marked up. The kids visited us with the grandkids this evening to see us off with champagne and hugs for Grandpa and Grandma. Son needed to come get Jerry anyway. My lab grandkids were all excited too. They wanted to know why we had to go far away to get married. Could they come too? I told them that someday, when they are bigger, Grandma and I will rent a large motorhome and take them somewhere for a long weekend, camping and fishing and maybe swimming. They made me pinky promise. Actually, after describing it to them, I'm looking forward to that day as much as they are. Of course, Jane and her cousin in Carson, Nevada have been planning and scheming about the visit and the wedding. They've already made reservations at a local pub for our bachelorette party combined, a small chapel for the wedding, a reception with cake in their home, and the honeymoon suite for the wedding night. Of course they did. The cousin's husband is a good guy and fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing them and catching up. They are both going to stand up with us, and their daughter is going to be the photographer, her hobby. All more complicated than I first envisioned. But hey, this is the last time we're getting married. I do tease Jane about signs I should watch for if she should start to turn into bridezilla. Scotch is the cure, not for her, for me. She just smiles and rolls her eyes. After the kids left, Jane and I did discuss some things, with her head on my sore shoulder. I simply asked her where she would like us to live when we get back. She seemed surprised and impressed that I asked. She said, "Right here, of course." She said that her condo never seemed like home, not really. Also, she loves my place, and it's so peaceful. And she has no need to be downtown anymore anyway. And the grandkids love it here, and she'd like to put out a garden, and on and on. She concluded, "This is the perfect place for us." How cool is that? I'm not good at posting via phone, so I won't be posting for long spaces while gone. Just as well, this should not become a boring travel log. Maybe a short note when something important happens, like, we're married. Jane will have her laptop, but I don't want to use it for Reddit. Not that I would mind her reading my posts and your comments, not trying to hide anything, but it's become a very personal thing for me. Angel's Envy is purchased and secretly tucked away for our wedding night. Update. Stopped en route at a medical clinic for shoulder. Partial dislocation. Shot. Meds. Better now. Jane is very sorry. All good. Update. On our trip in Carson. We are now married again. Very happy. Update 17. First day back from our trip out west and getting married. Update 18. We arrived back home this morning Thursday from our camping trip out west. Good to be home. My place is now our home. We were married last Thursday, and the wedding went perfectly. We discussed lots of details during our trip. Some things got simpler and some got more complicated, like if I should add her name to my titled assets or establish a trust for our combined assets, and what to do with her condo. My home is like a bachelor pad, and I asked if she had any changes in mind. She said no, not if I like it that way. I told her that I wanted her to put her personal touch on things and decorate, and we'll work out what items we should move in from her place, and I'm open to rearranging or whatever. She did hint at setting up her home office space in my den, and I'm fine with that because it's not much more than a storage room right now anyway. She smiled and promised not to touch my basement, but I think she could probably improve that too, so I wouldn't mind. We even talked about NFL game watching nights. It's always only been guys. Would having women there change the atmosphere and dynamics? I'll have to give that some thought, as we sometimes get a little crude and act like 12-year-olds. That's part of the fun, letting our hair down, so to speak, as if we still had much hair and being unguarded. The biggest surprise was that our kids and a few of our friends and neighbors prepared a reception for us for this afternoon. Not just to celebrate our marriage, but also as a belated Father's Day. Son and neighbor and son-in-law had the place all groomed, and the daughter and daughter-in-law organized everything, including food and drink and decorations. What a wonderful homecoming, a surprise to me. But I later learned that Jane had been talking with her daughter the last few days and made sure we got home on the correct day and in time. I have the best family, friends, and neighbors. I didn't get a count, but if you include everyone's kids, I'll bet nearly 100 people came and went throughout the afternoon, more than they expected. I was moved, and so was Jane. We all mingled and talked and laughed, and some gave toasts. My kids, with some financial help from Jane, had traded in my old grasshopper mower for a new model, with all the comforts and bells and whistles, including a canopy. Happy Father's Day. The grasshopper dealer is a friend, and he knew exactly what I would like. I can't wait to use it, but everything's already mowed right now. Late in the evening, Jane had a bit too much to drink on an empty stomach, and was professing her love for me to anyone who would listen. Nothing too personal or embarrassing, but not like her in public, so my daughter helped me put her to bed. As my daughter and I were putting Jane down, she mentioned she wanted to read my story on Reddit. I had told Jane about Reddit during our trip, she asked. The daughter gave me an inquisitive look, so now my daughter knows too, sort of. Jane is sleeping, And I'm here posting with Jerry my lab on my feet. This day is one of the best, ranking right up there with the days our kids and grandkids were born. Everyone wanted to help clean up and unpack, but I sent them all home and said we'd do it tomorrow. Right now I'm buzzed and as happy as I can stand. Jane is beautiful and smart, and I love her. Did I mention that? She's now my wife. I know we are still in the honeymoon phase, and my goal is to keep it that way. My shoulder is pretty much back to normal. Good night. Update. Our wedding day in Nevada last Thursday went without a hitch, pun intended, but not without some drama. Update Roman 19. Our wedding day in Nevada last Thursday went without a hitch, pun intended, thanks to all of the planning of Jane and her cousin and family in Carson. On our wedding night, we were both anxious and couldn't wait to get to our suite. It turns out there was some unexpected drama, not from her, but from me. I won't go into details, but apparently I hadn't completely processed her having been with another man, thus my hesitation previously. I've read that it's more difficult for a male to get over such a thing than a female. Guess it was for me. Lots of tears and confessions, and I asked for details that I had no right to ask. We were divorced by then. But through tears, she was open, patient, and comforting, and even asked some questions herself, which were difficult to talk about. But that's fair. She said that she wanted me, and has been looking forward to this night for 12 years, but would wait as long as it took. Several hours later, the night ended well, very well. I love her even better now than when we married the first time. Different, but better, if that makes sense. I have no illusions that this euphoria will last forever. Life doesn't work that way, but I'm convinced we will be together for the duration. It's satisfying and tranquil knowing that. Update 20. Hi, this is Jane. Thank you all for helping my husband. He thinks highly of you. On our trip, I noticed him checking his phone each evening. I know he has never been on social media, so I asked. He said that he wrote our story on Reddit last fall, and has been interacting with his Reddit friends since then. I didn't know what Reddit was, so he described it to me. I asked if I could read it. He said yes, but wanted me to wait until we got home. He warned me that in most of his posts, he thought that I had cheated on him and left him for another man, and so did you. I will regret making him think that for the rest of my days. I worried about it the rest of the trip, and the day after we got home, I asked, and he pulled it up on his computer and showed me how to access his posts and the comments, then left me alone. I read everything and all the comments, and I know some of you hate me for divorcing and hurting my husband. I have hated myself for that too. Even now you think I had an emotional affair with another man before we divorced. But that is not true. I did flirt with him and enjoyed his compliments and the excitement, but I never had feelings for him or ever discussed my marriage or personal issues with him. It wasn't like that. I did not divorce my husband for another man. I just remember feeling so unsettled, and that something was missing in me, and I needed something more, not romantically, and foolishly thought the only solution was to be on my own. How stupid and selfish. It went fine while my ex-husband remained friends, and he was still talking and visiting me. But when he stopped, my world stopped. Even now, it pains me to type the phrase ex-husband. I cried when reading about his hurt and anguish in his own words, and how hard he tried to save us. I caused all of that. He was right about the daughter's wedding. I ruined what should have been her happiest day, and I will never forgive myself for that. I felt hurt and envy when he wrote about his lady friends, but he would never have been with them had I not divorced him, so they are my fault, not his. His being together with them and doing things with them hurt almost as much as his no contact did. I met the wedding crasher girl before our trip, and she was respectful to me, but more attractive and smart and younger and fun. As he wrote, the whole package. I know that she would be with him if she could. A woman can just tell. I cried more when his responses started to express feelings for me again. I don't deserve him. His recall of things is pretty factual, and it was interesting but gut-wrenching to read from his viewpoint. I have a much different perspective on the same events, but that's not important. I know that I am 100% at fault for the divorce. No excuses and no good reasons. He was a wonderful husband and a great father, and is the best and most honorable man I've known. He was always so active and passionate about everything. Yes, sometimes intense. He has so many friends because he's such a high-quality and fun man, and people want to be around him. He's still attractive to me and, unfortunately, to all the ladies, and I find myself being jealous when other women look at him. His looks, his confidence, his presence in a room. My analyst said that jealousy indicates insecurity or envy, and neither is healthy. I look back 12 years ago and still can't imagine what was in my head. I quickly realized how badly I screwed up, and what I had lost after he stopped communicating with me. My husband and our kids were not talking to me, and I became so lonely and lost. All my fault, not theirs. Several years ago, after I had been emailing him pictures of our grandkids for months, he finally replied with thanks. That single word email reply was motivating. I became obsessed with being with him, either as a friend or just another one of his ladies. Then, when he finally asked me to dinner to discuss interacting as grandparents at family events, my heart exploded. I was so nervous walking into that restaurant I couldn't breathe and was shaking. Our manager friend noticed and helped me calm down before taking me to his table. I wish I had the words to convince him that I always loved him and no other. But I'm not as good at describing my thoughts like he is. He's one of the smartest and most articulate people I know. When I was a young, naive bride, he taught me about being career-oriented, managing money, and even raising a family. He was always the driving force. How could I take a husband like that for granted? But I did. I will never take him for granted again. I will show my new husband I love him and earn his respect every day, no matter what comes. He wrote that he should have stopped to smell the roses more. No, I love him just the way he is, including playing his music loud, riding his motorcycle, or flying. He could have anyone, and I'm so thankful he still wants me. I consider it a gift that I've been given. I'm beyond happy, and my job is to make sure he's happy. He wrote that he likes strong women, so I need to be strong for him. My first inclination is to smother him with attention and affection, and be at his beck and call. But I don't want to turn him off or bore him. I'm trying to be decisive and take the lead in our home and family, while giving him all the extra attention and love he deserves. I am dedicated to my husband like I should have always been. Edit. Jane wrote this in her word processor, and asked me to post it to Reddit for her. I think she spent most of yesterday on it. I know that at least she, my daughter, and probably my son will be reading here now. Jane asked if you guys would ask questions of her. I told her I don't know, but she seems a little anxious about that. This is all new to her. Update 21. I'm sitting here relaxing in the shade with a cold drink, watching Jane mow our yard with the new grasshopper. Life is full. I'm posting from her laptop. The kids and grandchildren are coming to visit tomorrow Saturday. Everyone had plans for July 4th, so we're going to celebrate our nation's independence as a family tomorrow instead. Jane had a financial interest in the new mower, so she wanted to drive it. It took her a bit to get the hang of a zero turn, but she liked it and enjoys mowing. She's never mowed. She even taught herself how to turn it without skidding a wheel and damaging the grass better than me. We listened to some audiobooks in the pickup while on the trip, and she has really taken to them. Now she says she gets wrapped up in the story and misses exits while driving, and is even getting addicted to them while doing her chores or relaxing. She'll get used to it like I did. Who would have thought all of this? But Jane's been surprising me a lot these days. We haven't gone flying, yet I've only flown twice this season myself. But we've taken a few lazy Harley rides in the evenings when things get cool and calm. Always back before dark. Now she's the one tossing me the helmet and saying, "Let's go easy, Ryder." I'm trying to figure out the best way to teach her to drive it with me riding a passenger if she's interested in that. Probably a riding instruction class on a smaller bike first. We went fishing in the neighbor's pond yesterday and caught several crappie. She was a real trooper and was so thrilled when she caught her first one. She can still get excited like a teenage girl sometimes, which warms my heart. She had fun and helped me fillet and fry them up for supper. I think she's hooked. She can't wait for us to take the grandchildren fishing there. She even helped me cut up some small down trees and stack them for winter firewood. She's learning to drive the ATV and pulling a cart hauling the wood up to the house. She wants to get competent enough to give the grandkids rides around the yard. Also, we just bought my brother's 16 Scamp camper. They can't use it anymore, and it has some special memories for us now. They wanted to just give it to us, but we couldn't accept that. Jane is already planning a camper trip to the east this fall with a drive up the coast to visit Cole Palin's, now deceased old Rhinebeck Aerodrome, Red Hook, New York, where they fly authentic WWI airplanes on the weekends. A bucket list item of mine, and Jane also wants to see all the fall foliage up there. I'm enjoying some of Jane's favorite activities too. We attended our first square dancing class, and it was fun and harder than it looks. She would also like to try a ballroom dancing class in the future. Not sure about that one. We are signed up for the next dinner and movie group outing, and so is my ex-analyst friend with Jane's friend. At Jane's suggestion, the four of us all went to a concert on the grass on July 4th afternoon with umbrellas and lawn chairs, and I really enjoyed it and was sorry when it ended. Very patriotic. This feels like a fairy tale, and things continue to move fast. But Jane is not the same woman I was married to all those years. She's more adventurous and upbeat and very happy. Happy is attractive. We're getting older, and I know there will be challenges, but like Alan Jackson sings in The Older I Get, if they found a fountain of youth, I wouldn't drink a drop. And that's the truth. I'm just getting to my best years yet. I'm not sure what there will be to ask or tell you guys after this. I believe things will be much more stable and uninteresting, but I will sure miss writing to you all and anxiously awaiting your comments and thoughts. I will keep checking this account, and will update if anything of substance happens, good or bad, but not bore you with our day-to-day stuff. I know Jane has read through all of this several times now, and so has her daughter. I'm pretty sure each would like to talk about my interpretation of events versus their own. Son maybe too, but hasn't said anything. But daughter and Dill are very close, like true sisters, and they talk about everything. I know there are many heartbreaking stories here on Reddit, and I feel a little guilty about mine turning out so positive. I have never commented on anyone's post. I can't imagine having any wisdom or advice to offer to another. But I sure do appreciate all of your guidance and support during my journey. I altered my life's path, and I can't express how thankful I am to you all. Thanks, until better paid. Update 22. Leaving early tomorrow morning for Oshkosh, WI, for the annual EA of Fly-In and Airshow 10-hour drive. This year Jane is attending with me. She's never been. No, I didn't talk her into it. She brought it up and was excited to go with me. I've attended this event frequently since the 80s, and will be meeting many longtime friends there as usual. It's the largest fly-in in the world. More than 10,000 aircraft come and stay for the week with afternoon airshows featuring the world's best performers, plus lots of military flying demonstrations. Over 600,000 aviation-minded people attend at some point during the week. I typically stay in a tent, but will be taking the Scamp Camper this year. Not sure how many days we'll stay. That will be up to Jane. I usually stay all week to attend forums and programs and vendors and see everything. But that may be a little much for her. It's one of the high points of my year, and I'm so happy she wants to come with me. I'll let you know how it goes. Best of two worlds, can't wait. Update 23. The Oshkosh WI Fly-In and Airshow was a big success. Jane stayed 4 days, and would have been willing to stay longer, but I convinced her to ride home with a couple of other wives that always head back home early, and I stayed there with their husbands for the remainder of the week. She made some new friends of these wives, and they sometimes went out and shopped or visited cheese stores, and are already making plans for next year. We found some great restaurants on the lake for dinners, and it was so great having her there with me. We are both considering volunteering for this event. Next year her suggestion, after talking to a tram driving couple, is that I would drive, and she would announce the next stops. I put my plane up for sale, and put up some flyers at Oshkosh, and have already had some calls. I just don't fly enough anymore to justify all the maintenance and hangar rent and insurance and taxes. No, you can't dollar justify a hobby, but this will be a good trade-off. I will join the flying club at our small airport, and rent their Cessna 172 by the hour instead. Not as fast and as XY as mine, but flying is flying. I have some plans for the proceeds. Jane and I have had more discussions about things, now that she's read through my posts several times. Her memories and interpretations of events are different than mine. We are careful to discuss in a non-defensive way. Just our memories of that time, no right or wrong, although she always apologizes. This usually happens after lights out laying in bed, usually holding hands, which has become our signal that one of us is in the mood to talk. This is a good thing. Wish we did this back when we were married the first time. As one commenter said months ago, communication, communication, communication. We are new housemates and set in our ways after 12 years apart. So everything is not all rainbows and unicorns. There have been instances when we disagree on something, or I act like a jerk, and she just stops and smiles at me, which makes me stop and smile too. It's her way of saying that we are more important than any of these little things. What a lady. Mostly we are great, and I sometimes catch myself wondering when reality is going to step in and tell me this isn't real. Update 24. Today I gave Jane a bright red 2004 Ford Thunderbird convertible. I know if she had a bucket list, this would be on it. She was completely surprised and brought to tears. I was going to give it to her this weekend when the kids could be here, they know. But I couldn't wait. She had always lusted over the Thunderbird convertibles when we were married. But it wasn't practical as a family vehicle, the sporty ones, not the big luxury models. Jane was not the least bit interested in learning to drive the motorcycle. She just wants to ride as my passenger. So I figured this convertible will let her drive something with the wind in her hair, and I can be her passenger instead. My brother knew a guy who knew a guy. It had been a gift to the original owner from her late husband in 2004. But she can't drive anymore. And after hearing I was giving it as a gift to my bride, she made sure we closed the deal. My brother took care of the logistics and stored it while we were at Oshkosh. Jane was against me selling the plane at first, but with the leftover proceeds after buying the Thunderbird, we are also about to purchase half interest in Jane's friend's pontoon boat and slip on the nearby lake, 20 minutes away. Jane is already familiar with this boat and slip, because she's been out on it many times with her girlfriends. The couple that own it are longtime friends, and will love to share the boat expenses and slip costs. Remember the husband who would brag to his wife, who then told my ex-wife what I was doing? That's them. We have borrowed the boat a couple of times already, and really liked spending hot afternoons out on the water. They have grandkids like we do, and have lots of little life vests and air armbands, and a large lily pad float already stowed. Jane sunbathes, lathered in sunscreen. Doesn't that defeat the purpose? Not complaining, as I love rubbing it on her. We listen to music and fish and snack and sip wine and chill. Very relaxing. Not as fast or cool as our ski boat was at the lake house. But just imagine Craig Morgan's Redneck Yacht Club and Little Big Town's pontoon. Don't drink it if the mountains aren't blue. Cheaper and easier than digging a pool for the grandkids. Some of my friends have pools and complained about the constant upkeep and chemicals, cleaning and winterizing, and wet towels and pool toys scattered around. Jane has the house looking nice. We moved in some of her favorite furniture, pictures, and cookware and rearranged a little. The den is now her home office, and she still has a Zoom meeting on occasion as a consultant. We haven't decided what to do with her condo yet. This week we signed papers to rent it partially furnished to a young couple for a few months, while their new house is being completed. But question if we want to be landlords going forward. Jane is researching all the tax ramifications and other advantages of selling versus owning as an investment property. If so, the condo complex could manage it for us for a fee, of course. Yesterday, we visited the other ex-lady friend that I wanted to remain friends with. She called and asked if I could come and check her hot water heater, fix a light switch, and help lift some totes onto some shelves in her garage. I built those shelves for her a few years back. Jane was standing there when I answered her call, so I put it on speaker. Jane was nodding, yes, do it, so I said okay, and we went that evening. Storing the totes and replacing the switch was easy, and I was able to get her hot water heater going. I also adjusted her garage door opener, and some other little things. While I was working on those, Jane and the ex-lady friend had drinks, handed me tools, and talked and laughed. They got along great. How can they do that? I could never talk and joke with a guy that I knew had been with my wife. Is this a difference between women and men? Or is it just me? Jane was more comfortable being there than I was. Things still seemed to be moving fast. I would not wish my most painful time on anyone. It was a 12-year-long punch in the gut. But I'm convinced that we are happier and more appreciative of each other now than if it hadn't happened. And every day I am more convinced that I will love her till the end, and her me. Life goes on. Make the best of it. Don't let your worst times be you. I feel blessed more than I deserve. Update 25. Hi, this is Jane again. I need to write something to my husband's Reddit friends that I am okay and happy. Apparently his posts gave some the impression that I am participating in activities just to please him. I discovered his DMs and asked, and he said okay. I love the things we do. I'm a city girl and was never exposed to rural living, so I did not know how satisfying outside work would be. Hauling wood and tending a garden and mowing and pulling weeds and picking tomatoes and shucking sweet corn. Our neighbor grows tons of it. I'm going to buy a battery-powered trimmer because I can't start the gas one. He doesn't want me to do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. Next week, we are planning to assemble a wooden play structure for the grandkids. He has had it since before we got together, and now I'm bugging him weekly about it. Ruined nails and a few bruises are a small price for this new life with him. I rode home from Oshkosh early without him, not because I was bored or wanted to leave early, but because I wanted him to enjoy himself with his friends without worrying about keeping me entertained. Yes, he surprised me with a Thunderbird convertible sports car. What a selfless husband. I don't need this car, but I love it, and I've already taken him for a ride in the country with the top down, and will take the grandkids soon too. He put his plane up for sale to buy the convertible, and also had half an interest in a pontoon boat on the lake. I hated for him to give up his plane because he and his friends spent hundreds of hours building it years ago when we were married. He loved flying it, but he says that things change, and the convertible and boat are much better options for us now. The original car owner wants to meet us and tell us the car story, so we will be visiting her in the next week or so. She is in a nursing home. We visited another of his ex-lady friends, so he could do some handyman things for her. He has always done that for our friends and neighbors, so it wasn't strange or odd to me. He seemed more nervous than I was, but she was very nice and sincere, and I can see why he liked spending time with her. We got along great, and I would like to consider her a new friend. My husband seems confused about that, but I know I caused all of this. I can tell she still likes him, but she seems very trustworthy, and there is no reason for me to blame her. Not her fault. She is easy to like. He compliments me on being willing to do new things, and I compliment him on being so open and vulnerable. He doesn't like that word. He wrote that I diffuse our misunderstandings with just a smile, but he does not mention how patient and kind forgiving he is. He makes it easy. I divorced him and hurt him horribly, and that will never go away, but I am dedicated to him forever. Now a deep breath, enough delaying the real reason I am writing. I have told my husband, and I want to tell his Reddit friends that I believe I had an emotional affair just before we divorced. I denied that to myself until now after talking to a friend with experience during the 10-hour ride home from Oshkosh and some research, and then talking with my analyst. Although I did not confide in the about my husband, marriage, or personal issues, I did look forward to seeing him and hearing his compliments. Sometimes we had dinner alone in restaurants or drinks in a bar after business functions. One of my new Oshkosh friends finally asked me if I told my husband who I was going to meet each time, or about every encounter with when I got home, and I admitted that I didn't and couldn't. She said that is the biggest test. If you can't tell your husband, then it was probably an emotional affair. The and I never touched, but we flirted quite a bit toward the end. I did not leave my husband for the but I think it was a factor because it gave me the confidence to leave. My mind was all messed up then, but that is no excuse. I love my husband so deeply, And he is such an honest man that I just had to tell him of my epiphany, knowing it would hurt him again. I don't know why he wants me. If he threw me out, I would understand. He loves me, faults and all, and there's nothing more comforting in this world. I would literally die for this man. Edit. Jane asked me to post this to you guys as is. She wrote it just this afternoon. I will post my thoughts tomorrow after I sleep on it. Update 26. Jane now believes she had an emotional affair with the just before we divorced. She's more devastated about this revelation than I am. I guess it's because I assumed this and much worse for all these years until our discussion on Mother's Day. Apparently one of the ladies she rode back from Oshkosh with is experienced in such matters. I think she is a relationship counselor for a church. In any case, when Jane got home, she spent the remainder of the week researching emotional affairs, called her analyst, and finished the Not Just Friends ebook. When I got home from Oshkosh, she grabbed me and held tight for several minutes and said she needed to talk to me. Scared me to death. When I got her to sit down and tell me, she blurted out, "I had an emotional affair before we divorced." I was so relieved that I probably didn't give it the seriousness it deserved, or to the level that she did. She had worked herself into a state over the past couple of days, and I'll swear she must have been worrying that I might just throw her out right then. Of course I wouldn't, no matter what. But certainly not for something she just realized 12 years ago. After some talk, I said that I needed to drain and unpack the camper, put it away, and think about all this. "We'll talk later. It will be okay, don't worry." She wanted to help, so I said, "Okay, better than sitting there fretting." We talked later, and she insisted on telling me every detail of what she and did before we divorced. Nothing physical, but dinners and drinks and flirting and laughing. No emails or texts or late-night phone calls or anything like that. But she enjoyed his company and the excitement of it all and looked forward to seeing him. She even picked out her best outfits to wear on the days when she knew he would see her, fishing for compliments. Jane sobbed the whole time and kept apologizing. I asked her again if that's why she left me, divorced me, and her answer was always an emphatic no. But she does recognize now that it helped give her the confidence to do so during her weird phase and made her feel ashamed enough to avoid me when we were still in the house together. I told her that it was 12 years ago, and I've already forgiven her, but I'm glad you told me. She says she just can't believe I still want her after all of the things she did to me, and she will make it up to me. But I can't imagine how she could do any more to make me happier than I am now. Jane wants me to talk with her analyst from back. Then she still sees him for annual checkups, and sometimes calls him and says she's willing to sign papers so he can disclose information and notes to me about discussions that happened back during their sessions and his opinions of them. She says it would help me realize how messed up she was then and how little the meant to her. Not looking forward to that. And her analyst also sounds uncomfortable with it and wants us to have a joint session to discuss it first, as that is privileged info. He said he would only consider it if Jane is sitting there with me, and that he would not volunteer any information, but would only answer questions. Sounds like a deposition. I should ask my analyst friend about that. He is always happy to help, but we're good friends now, and I hate to keep bothering him about this stuff. I'm okay without knowing about Jane's sessions back then, so I don't think this is necessary. By now the past is the past, but Jane has mentioned this more than once since I got back and her emotional affair revelation. She thinks it will help me. She had been in a funk since her ride home from Oshkosh, so that's why I gave her the Thunderbird Wednesday rather than wait until the weekend as planned. It really helped, but she is still down and reflective at night. I tell her I'm looking forward, not backwards. I love her, and we're good. The kids and grandchildren are coming this weekend, so that will help. She always gets gifts for them when we travel, and is excited about that. Update Roman 27. You guys schools are amazing. I'm humbled. I have helped Jane respond to some who addressed her post, but I'd rather make an update for all to see about your well-thought-out comments. Still not sure when I reply to a commenter if everyone can see it, or are notified about it. I don't pretend to understand this e-revelation thing with Jane, but I have gained some insight here that I would never have considered. Thanks. You all know who you are. To summarize your thoughts, this is the reverse of normal for a betrayed spouse. I've had 4 revelation events over the years. 1 when Jane divorced me, 2 when my daughter revealed that Jane cheated before the divorce, 3 when we had that first meeting at the restaurant in January, and 4 on Mother's Day when I learned Jane didn't really cheat and leave me for the I had my emotional reactions to each, and it took time to process. This emotional affair realization is new to Jane now. I had absorbed her interaction with and worse years ago, but it's very raw to her right now, and I need to think of it in that way. It's important to her. Thanks. The meeting with Jane's analyst may not be a bad idea after all. Not necessarily for me, but for her. I'm pretty much over my issues about our divorce and her actions, but obviously Jane isn't. She still has some demons to deal with. When I think of it in that way, I'm happy to help. I did talk to my analyst friend, and he said the only way he would do that when he was in practice is for the patient to be in the room approving each question, or with a court order for a deceased patient. He did say it might be a good exercise for Jane. Turns out he knows Jane's analyst professionally and says he's very good. He said that it is not unusual for a person to rationalize feelings and actions and not realize a difficult truth until well after. It's an enabling and protective mechanism. Again, thanks. This is a good thing that Jane has come to this conclusion on her own, with help from her new girlfriends, and is upset about it. It's another sign that she acknowledges her thoughts and actions toward the were wrong and very serious, and is remorseful. Nobody can tell her that. She has to get there on her own, and she is. The consensus is that I have a wife that loves me beyond doubt and is dedicated. I agree, and thanks. You all helped get me here. I arranged for flowers and a note to be sent to both of the ladies that brought Jane home from Oshkosh last week. I thanked them for being there for Jane and helping her in areas that I couldn't. I got a call from one of the husbands that his wife was very pleased and had feared that I might be upset with them for talking with Jane about this and stirring things up. I feel just the opposite. They are good people and good for Jane. The kids are aware of this. The daughter is sympathetic to mom, but also a little vindicated by her interpretations of mom's actions back then. The son is, as usual, more stoic and skeptical about his mother's revelation. Like me, he doesn't exactly understand how such an intelligent and aware person did not recognize what it was back then or during the 12 years since. They both love their mom, but are still protective of me. Been working on this post off and on all day, and been sipping some good scotch and getting progressively buzzed. Buzzed is relaxing, but also dangerous, as your brain loses focus and thinks of all kinds of things. One DM asked if I would be as willing to put up with all of this if Jane were not so attractive. She is, so it's a moot question, but got me thinking. The Eagles' Line Eyes song. City girls just seem to find out early how to open doors with just a smile. Am I a chump? Am I that shallow? I think she has inner beauty too. If I'm happy, does it matter? It's not just her face, but those bright eyes. I have a high school class reunion in September, and I will take Jane to show her off to my classmates. Is that bad? Some of it may be showing the girls in my class, look what I got, because Jane has aged better than any of them. I am proud of Jane. So is that so bad? Jane was not with me during the last 2 reunions. On the first one after our divorce, everyone knew that Jane and I had divorced, but I wasn't very sociable yet. On the second one, I had been dating several women and had lots of confidence and had a wonderful time with my football buddies and classmates, especially the girls. Nothing physical, but I really had a great time. Jane did the same with me at her class reunions while we were married. I was happy to go to her reunions, but sometimes felt like she was parading me around, especially to one particular guy. I later learned they dated in high school, but he's fat and bald now. Everyone, including him, was very nice. I could tell she had been popular. Jane is at son's house babysitting grandkids. My goal is to get Jane over this thing and get to a happy but mundane life. Enough drama. I'm told that some crave drama in their lives, which keeps things interesting. I don't. Some comments and DMs question my taking her back. All I can say is that without her, I'm not me. I wasn't me for 12 years. Hard to explain. Jane is getting home. She got to go. Sorry for the ramble. Update 28. Jane and I have had some very candid talks since her recognition that she had an emotional affair before we divorced. Pretty emotional for her, not so much for me. She says she cheated, is a cheater, and is having a hard time reconciling that. This is much like you guys said it would be for her. I still don't understand, and I wish I could just tell her that it was 12 years ago, and I forgave her already, but I guess it doesn't work like that. We can't see her analyst until the end of the month, and I'm looking forward to that session, hoping it will help her pass this issue, or at least start moving in that direction. I was listening to music fairly loud the other evening, and she heard Dr. Hook's When You're in Love with a Beautiful Woman, and she came downstairs. I was miming the words while pointing at her for fun, the beautiful woman part, and she asked, "Really, did you think of me that way? Like you should be worried about friends and other guys? Did you trust me?" No, that's not what I meant. Jane, please chill. She seems so sensitive now about that stuff. That started yet another discussion, and she said that she actually feels that way about me sometimes. Since I had been with and enjoyed other girls, she worries when other girls look at me. Are they going to try to be with me? And am I tempted? I assured her that I was with those women only because I didn't have you at the time. Now that I have you again, I'm yours always, and I even married you to prove that. That helped, but she's still not right, not content, not whole. Granted, we haven't really talked much about my ex-ladies since we've been together again, and I don't look forward to that conversation. She has low self-esteem and guilt, and is not the strong, confident woman that I know. My words are not enough. Is the passing of time going to be enough? Not sure what to do or how hard to push until our session with her analyst. I've talked with the kids, and they are a bit puzzled about how I should proceed too. Son says just be there for her, and daughter says to hug her frequently. It's important. I just want to go outside and yell. Things were so great, still good, but not as good, which stinks. Maybe that other shoe has dropped, and here we are. Maybe too good to be true really is too good to be true. I am not as happy when she is not as happy. Buzzed with brandy tonight, but should sleep well. Good night. Edit. I am going to call Jane's analyst's office tomorrow Monday to see if there's any way he can see her sometime this week. We are flexible on what time of day, before or after hours. Jane agreed. I can't fix her myself, but I can't just twiddle my thumbs and wait either. Update 29. I called Jane's analyst's office this morning and talked to a receptionist for that group. He called me back himself around 30 minutes later. After briefly summarizing Jane's self-revelation and my concern, he agreed to stay after hours today to see her. I've never met him, but he sounds professional and very helpful on the phone. He recommended that I come with her, but he wants to talk with her alone first. Jane seems relieved but a little nervous, if that makes sense. I know she trusts him. I know that a single visit will not magically fix Jane, but I hope it helps her. I want her to be happy with herself again, even if for my own selfish reasons. We'll let you know. Update 30. We went to see Jane's analyst at 6 o'clock yesterday afternoon. He stayed late to see us and made a fresh pot of coffee in the waiting room for us. I got the feeling this is not unusual for him. He took her into his office, and I waited in the waiting room and had coffee and browsed worn-out magazines and read a couple of interesting articles. All of the offices had a window from the waiting room, so I could look in on them if I wanted. Probably installed in the 80s-90s to avoid sexual harassment accusations. I remember those days in our company. They were in there for nearly an hour, but he came out a couple of times to check on me and to say things were going well. Then he came out and took me into a little conference room alone for a couple of minutes. He said that things are going to be fine, but it may take a little time. Also, not to be afraid to talk to her about this or anything else. She is not as fragile as I might think. Constructive talking helps. Avoiding doesn't. He then said that he knows how much she cares and obsesses about me, and used that to reframe her regret into a trigger that, when you are happy, it makes me happy. So while processing this issue for herself, she can be happy because it will make me happier, or something like that. He said this is not a trick, just a tool, a technique to help her, and she is aware. Then we both went into his office, where Jane was. She held a tattered tissue and looked like she'd been crying, but was now smiling and looked relaxed. They made arrangements for a quick check-up session next week, and that was it. I don't know what was said, but she was already better and even upbeat on the drive home, and has been acting pretty normal today. Both you guys and the analyst said that this will take time, but I can't believe how much difference a single session has made. I'm beginning to really believe in this. I see stuff, and that they really do know what they're doing. I'm not going to probe her about the session, but if she wants to talk, I will listen with interest and ask questions, even hard ones. Today and again tomorrow, we are removing sweet corn from the cob for freezing. Our neighbor plants lots of it, and we're doing this to keep a portion of the harvest. First we blanch it, then remove the kernels with a corn stripper tool, a variable speed drill, and a large bunt pan. We flung corn all over the kitchen and laughed and had so much fun, but finally got it figured out and ran out of Ziploc bags. We took her t-shirt to get more bags, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Off to bed. My bride is already there, like Bobby McFerrin sings. Don't worry, be happy. It's been playing in my head all day after talking with the analyst last night. I think we're going to be just fine, and we'll get back to mundane and boring. Thank you all. Update Roman 31. Taking Jane to see her analyst for a checkup visit at 1 o'clock today. She has been pretty upbeat since her session last week, except sometimes a little down at night and tries to apologize. I always listen, then tell her that it was 12 years ago, and that was part of the old us, and has nothing to do with the new us. That helps, but now she seems to have a new curiosity about my time with my lady friends. I'm always honest but try to word my answers carefully. Not sure why this newfound interest in my love life after our divorce, but I hope this obsession doesn't go on much longer. It's uncomfortable to discuss with her. Update 32. I took Jane to her scheduled follow-up with her analyst yesterday. When she went in to see him, I asked him for a quick word with him after they finished. He was in there with her for maybe 15 minutes. Then he came out and took me into the little conference room like before. He told me Jane was doing very well and asked me what was on my mind. I told him about Jane wanting to know more details about my relationships with the lady friends I dated while we were divorced. I asked if this is good or bad for her. I told him that I answer her honestly and carefully, but it's very uncomfortable. Can it hurt her? He asked if she seemed most interested in the physical acts or the emotional connection. That word seems to keep coming up. He said that if she's more interested in the physical, she might be worried that my encounters with those women pleased me better than she does. Some partners, especially females, sometimes measure their value in how well they please their partner sexually. He added that if she's more interested in how deep the emotional connections you shared with these ladies are, then she may be worried that she can't possibly measure up, and you will long for those feelings instead. He suspects this stems from her insecurity and low self-esteem caused by her realization that she had an emotional affair while married to you. And it was at least partly responsible for breaking apart from you. I said both. She asked early on about the emotional side. And then on our wedding night she asked about the physical side, because she was helping me get my manhood back. Now it's both together. He recommended that I just talk with her about it, and answer her questions honestly and respectfully. No brag, just fact. Be open with her. She's more resilient than you think. I like this guy, and I was not embarrassed talking to him about very personal stuff. He seems good about that. Odd how things tend to happen all at once. While I was waiting in the analyst's waiting room, the co-owners of our pontoon boat called and asked us to come out to the lake with them for the afternoon. We decided to accept and rushed back home to change into swimming gear and pack a cooler. It was a nice day on the lake with good friends. We cooked some burgers, loved that little magma grill, and had a great time and forgot all about the analyst's visit for several hours. We didn't dock until nearly dark. During the afternoon, Jane took a couple of calls from her old company, and, after discussing with me, agreed to consult on a pretty big upcoming event. It will mostly involve emails, texts, a few Zoom calls, and a critical path planning spreadsheet. I taught her about critical path methods, and over the years she became very successful at backing into hard execution dates. She wants us to go on site for the actual event. It's pretty cool. I responded to a few of you guys last night before my mind and fingers went numb. This relationship and feelings stuff just isn't in my wheelhouse. I consider myself an intelligent guy, but I just don't have this sense. You guys give me all these perspectives and theories to consider. I feel inadequate in that area, but thankful. I do believe that we will be fine. Edit. This evening I was proofreading this post before hitting the post button and realized I was missing the simplest method of all to determine why Jane was so interested in my ex-lady friends. That is, just ask her. Well done. I think that's probably what her analyst meant when he recommended that I just talk with her about it and be open with her. In any case, I brought us a glass of wine and I asked her outright. She grinned and said she was going to talk to me about it tonight anyway. She said she saw my previous posts and saw how concerned I was about it, so she's glad I asked. She says that she also saw your all's comments, and she can't discount much of what you said. But after giving it some thought today, it's mostly that her confidence in me wanting her was now in question, and she needs to know what they did for me, how I felt about them, and can she measure up to them? They were younger, more experienced, and more fun. What could she offer against that after what she did to me? I told her that I would answer any questions she has. But in the end, I still chose her and still do. It got pretty emotional, still is. Who would have ever thought that a forum like this could turn out to be such an unintended form of communication between a couple that apparently still does not communicate well enough yet? When I get carried away making posts here, I imagine I'm posting anonymously to my Reddit friends, and I forget that several people who know me read here also, including Jane. Thanks. Update 33. Great weekend. We threw one last hangar party, because I sold my plane to a local fellow aviator, and he's taking over the lease on the hangar, so the plane will be staying local, which makes me pleased. Jane planned and organized the whole event. Burgers and brats and side dishes for all my airport buddies and their families and our friends and kids and grandkids. My pilot friends and I gave lots of rides to anyone who wanted one. A fitting way to turn over my bird and hangar to the new owner. We spent a day at the state fair the previous week. We took the kids there frequently years ago, but Jane never enjoyed it, city girl. Now she is genuinely interested in produce gardening, but mostly with the horse barns that she used to be so afraid of. She talked to several of the owners grooming their animals. Nice people, it's their passion, and they are dedicated and love talking about it, especially to a newbie. Taking the scamp camper to a fly and Labor Day weekend, and off to my class reunion the weekend after in a hotel. Jane is looking forward to and making plans for both. We've put the dancing classes and some other activities on hold until winter. They're just too busy right now. Jane is doing great. Me too. Edit. NFL games are coming quickly. I will need to work out with Jane if she wants to stay and get into football and invite her friends or do something else with her friends during the games while the guys are here. Thoughts. Update 34. Heading to my high school reunion with Jane tomorrow. Only an hour away, but we will be staying at a hotel for 2 nights where most of my out-of-town classmates are staying. It will be fun, and Jane is also looking forward to it. I warned Jane that I would be parading her around as my new trophy wife. She appeared appalled, but I think she secretly likes me, implying that she makes me proud. A friend of mine told me to look up the term identity crisis to see if it might match Jane's change 12 years ago. A period of uncertainty and confusion in which a person's sense of identity becomes insecure, typically due to a major life change or a shift in a person's role in society. After some research, I'll have to admit that all the signs and symptoms match Jane's emotions and actions pretty closely. Does not matter now, but interesting to know this is a real thing. Was that it? Who knows, probably never will. The big news is that my daughter is expecting again. They took us out to dinner last night to break the news. We all had wine, and my daughter made a point of having just water with a big grin. We finally caught on, and I ended up announcing it to the whole place with a toast. Daughter and Jane were embarrassed, but still stood up with me. He's a great kid. Everyone clapped, and some even came by our table to congratulate as they were leaving. I'm a very happy man, Grandpa. Edit. Jane will be going into full grandma mode during the pregnancy and after. I know this, and I am prepared to support her mindset and actions. She is a natural caregiver and will be in her zone. This is all good. Our trip to the East Coast and Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome in NY this fall will be postponed until next year. I'm good with that. A new grandchild is so worth it. Update 35. Jane and I attended my high school class reunion over the weekend. I went to a relatively small school, so we all knew each other pretty well. It was only an hour away, but we stayed for 2 nights at the inn where most of my out-of-town classmates stayed. What a blast. Jane had a good time too. Everyone congratulated us on being back together and was happy for us, except for one woman. She was my old flame in high school, the prettiest girl in our class, a hot cheerleader. I know, a common story because every guy thinks he dated the prettiest girl. I dreamed of marrying her, but she broke up with me soon after I left for college. She started dating an upperclassman who had a cool car, a nice house, stylish clothes, etc. I was heartbroken and spent that first holiday break back home trying to convince her to remain my girl so that we could make a future together. No luck, but after some dating around in college, I eventually met Jane, and the rest is history. Jane was so far above my old flame, it was easy. Remembering couples back then versus now, I realized that there is no way to predict who will divorce and who will stay together and be happy for the long haul. There are several divorces among my classmates and lots of emotional suffering, but there are more that stayed together and raised families and seem to be very happy. I've experienced both, so I get asked for advice sometimes. I'm pretty cautious about giving advice on such an emotional subject and telling them what worked for me without telling them what they should do. Everyone's situation is different, and advising someone during such a life-changing time is a big responsibility. I was single at my last 2 high school reunions, and at the last one 5 years ago, my old flame came on to me pretty hard. You could still see her beauty if you had known her during her youth, but she hadn't aged very well. Even if she had, I wouldn't have allowed anything to happen because she's been married and divorced 3 times, and she looks hard and drinks hard. Jane had always known about my HS flame, and we even talked about how sad her life had turned out during the ride back home, how being popular in high school doesn't always translate to a happy life. After we got home, I went downstairs and queued up the Garth Brooks song, Unanswered Prayers, and I called for Jane to come down. This had been playing in my head for most of the drive home. She came down and sat on my lap, and I pressed play. She had tears by the end of the song, and I'm always amazed at the power of music. We listened to the remainder of the Garth album. Jane personally met and worked with Garth Brooks once when she helped plan and coordinate one of his events. She says he seemed like a down-to-earth guy, and she has liked his songs ever since. Things are going great. Jane and I keep pretty busy during the week and get to see the grandkids on most weekends. We're finally going to start putting up the playground kit this week. It's been so hot here that I've been putting it off, but Jane has been bribing me to get it done. Grin. We still sometimes have talks at night, but that's getting easier too. Kids are doing well, everyone is healthy, and my daughter is expecting. Life is full. Update 36. The Alm has asked to see Jane. We learned that he has been in hospice care for a few weeks and has asked for Jane to visit him. Jane got an email from the Alm's daughter today. First we had heard of his condition. Daughter says he is fairly alert but frail and failing. Jane showed me the email, and it all sounds very sad, and he's in bad shape, but there is no mention of what he is dying from. Jane says she does not want to visit him and asked me what I thought she should do. I asked her if she had any contact with him or his daughter after they ended years ago, and Jane said no, none. It was a clean break, no communication, although he did try to call and email her for a while after. She knew that he took it pretty hard and had strong feelings for her, but she never did for him and never would, only for me. Not sure what I should advise Jane to do. I get that she does not want to risk upsetting me by visiting him, nor does she even want to, it seems. However, she is conflicted and hates to deny a last wish, and she also likes and respects his grown daughter and would like to comfort her. It sounds like she's single, and we don't know if she has any family there for her. After some thought, I told Jane that I will support whatever decision she makes. Also, I am willing to go with her if that would help. I know it might be awkward, but I'm willing if she needs me to be there for her. She's going to sleep on it and contact the Alm's daughter tomorrow morning. It sounds like time is running out, so we need to decide and act fairly quickly. Edit. I have decided. It's late, and Jane went to bed hours ago in a quandary. I need to take control of this one because I think a big part of her conflict is worrying about me, and if I take the lead then her burden will be much reduced. Tomorrow morning, I will tell Jane that we are going, and I will call Alm's daughter and make arrangements. If Jane wants me in the room, I will be there. If she prefers that I not see the Alm, I've never met or seen him, Then I will stay in the waiting room. If Jane doesn't do this, she may regret it in the future because she is a good person. I assume she will be emotional, and I will be calm for her. I will handle it because I'm not a delicate flower and life happens. Good night. Update 37. Yesterday, I contacted the alm's daughter in the morning and took Jane to visit him at hospice in the afternoon. It went as well as could be expected in such a sad circumstance. His daughter said he has been suffering from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for a few years and has endured chemotherapy, radiation, and other complications. Jane is a cancer survivor herself from 25 years ago and was successfully treated with minor surgery and some radiation therapy. All cancers are bad, but instances like this always make me so thankful that Jane had a type that was treatable without chemotherapy. On the drive there, Jane was adamant that she was just going there to say goodbye to an old work client. That's all. I told her I understand. Don't worry, just do whatever you need to do. When we arrived, the alm's daughter was waiting outside the building and greeting us. We all sat in the shade for a bit and talked. I like her. She is attractive and friendly, well-spoken, and very appreciative of us coming. She wanted to warn us about his condition and how he looks now. She is engaged to a guy who was waiting with the alm until Jane arrived, I think keeping him awake. There were a few other family members there, but her fiancé was the one directing everything. I like him. We will be receiving an invitation to their wedding and plan to attend. The alm's daughter took us into a waiting room and introduced us to everyone. Then she took Jane into the alm's room. I told her to just let me know if she needs me to come in. I'll be right here waiting. The alm's daughter and her fiancé both came back out, leaving Jane alone with him. It didn't feel strange or anxious at all, just sad. I talked with the fiancé and others, and they all seemed to know who I was, Jane's husband. Apparently the alm had talked about Jane, and therefore me over the years, and had told them that I was a lucky man. I'm assuming that Jane told him when she went and see with him that it was because she wanted to get me back. No one ever alluded to the fact that and Jane had dated, and he took her on a couple of overseas trips. They were all so friendly and thanked me for being there and bringing Jane. I now believe that they were surprised that Jane's ex-husband, and now husband again, would even consider helping, or even acknowledging the alm. Okay, maybe I'm a putz, but I was there for Jane, not for him. I didn't see or meet the alm, nor will I ever. Jane says she wouldn't have even recognized him. He was skin and bones, and it took a lot of his energy to speak. She said that he had tears when he saw her, and they talked about some of the big events they organized together in the old days, but nothing more. He did tell her that he's glad she is happy, and told her to tell me to take good care of her. She was in tears when she came out, but that was expected. Jane announced to the waiting room, "He wants to see Moon," in a questioning way. A guy got up and walked into Alm's room. I'm sure there's a story behind that nickname. Jane is so glad that we went, and thanked me for taking control and making the decision. She really was just saying goodbye to an old client. I had planned to say thanks to the alm's daughter for trying to break up Jane and her father back then, but the subject never came up, so I didn't. I will be taking her fiancé up flying next week. He's interested in aviation, and the new owner of my plane says I can fly it anytime to keep it active. He doesn't fly it very much. We wanted to take the alm's daughter and her fiancé on the boat for a cookout, but it's getting a little cool for that. So we're taking them to a dinner theater early next month, soonest reservation we could get. They are younger than us, but older than our kids, and we like them. Our son was a little surprised that I would take his mom to see the alm, but understands. Our daughter was touched and thought it was a nice gesture. It turns out our son knows of this, the alm's daughter's fiancé, and says he has a good reputation and is respected in his field like my son is. Life is strange, but good. Update 38. The consensus of many of our Reddit friends, and you have become friends, is that the alm was a bigger factor in splitting Jane and me than we are willing to acknowledge, that we are rug sweeping. I know this has been of concern for several of you since the beginning, and I have learned to listen and take your concerns seriously. That visit to the alm he has not passed yet has brought much of this discussion to the surface again, and I'll admit that I've mostly avoided it since Jane's ordeal of realizing that she had an E before we divorced. They weren't romantic, as Jane describes it, but she admits she did think of him when she dressed in the mornings, wearing something he might like, fishing for compliments, and she did allow him to flirt with her, and she flirted back for fun, and she kept their dinners and drinks after their business meetings a secret from me. She never directly lied to me, but let me assume that she was out with the event group, which was usually true, but not always. Because of all this and Jane reading all your comments, we have discussed the a lot the last couple of nights, lights out, holding hands our new normal. Jane says that she and her therapist did discuss the back when she was diagnosed and treated for depression. She says that her therapist was much more concerned about her other mental issues at the time, some possibly caused by her physical changes. After a series of questions and Jane assuring him that she did not have feelings for the her therapist did not pursue that subject much further. She could not recall all the questions, but some were. 1. Did she think of the all the time or obsess? Number 2. Did they have contact when not together, or did they have contact at odd hours? Number 3, was the the first person she thought of when she had news to share? Number 4, did she share personal or marriage problems with the Number 5, did she hide their interactions from friends and family? No, not directly. Jane said there were other questions, but those are the ones she remembers. Jane says he also wondered if the was like a father figure for her. I know her father was an executive for a national company and traveled a lot when she was growing up. Then she lost him to a stroke shortly after we were married. Jane says no, it wasn't that. Jane hasn't read the Not Just Friends book yet, but says she will do it now. Actually, at this point, I'm okay with rug sweeping about the but I've learned some stuff I didn't know, so I guess it's best to get it all out there. Jane keeps repeating what she has always said, that the was never that important to her. He was just there when she turned weird and lost her mind. She never thought of him in that way, even when they were dating. I asked her about being intimate with him if she didn't feel that way about him, and her eyes filled with tears, and she said it was horrible and it took its toll, and she will never forgive herself for ever allowing that to happen. She had already told me that she let it occur a total of 3 times during a period after I went no contact with her, but after that they were celibate. She had also told me some other personal things on our wedding night, but that's not necessary to detail here, so I do believe I'm getting the whole story. I'm still glad I took her to visit the but I will also be glad when all this reopening of old wounds is over. We've got grandkids and the future to look forward to. We will be out of town this weekend on a fall retreat with the whole family, kids and grandkids. Probably roast marshmallows and maybe carve pumpkins and make gingerbread houses, and visit an area called Pumpkin Patch for face painting and lots of activities. I am also putting together a Halloween playlist and got a couple of new JBL portable Bluetooth speakers to try for this 2 JBL Charge 5S. I argued that we could do all this stuff on our own property plus give ATV rides, but was outvoted. That's okay, it will be fun, and we can sure use a retreat after this week. Update 39. The passed this weekend while we were out of town with our family, and we all had a great time. Jane and I are glad we went to see the when we did. All is well. The daughter sent a text very late this evening Sunday because she knew we were vacationing with our family this weekend and didn't want to put a damper on that. It was expected and anticlimactic, but I'm glad she had the grace to wait to tell us. That was very considerate. There will not be services, but a celebration of life, sometime in the future, at the instruction. I'm with him. I don't want a funeral service either, just a party where everyone is happy and telling fun stories. Yes, I've put that down in writing. But Jane does not like it very much. On the subject of rug sweeping of the role in Jane's decisions back then, I appreciate all of your concerns and acknowledge and understand. Thank you, but I'm over it. I believe I have the whole story and Jane's admissions, and she has done everything in her power to let me know that the was never the one for her. I was always her one, even back then. In any case, I have completely forgiven her for all that. She tells me I was plan A all along and the was plan B, only because I stopped talking to her, and it was all her fault. Doesn't matter. She will always be my only love, and she insists that I've always been her only man, even during her weird time. It works for us, and our kids, and our grandkids. I'm a happy man and a bit buzzed right now, so there, have at it. Edit. Sorry, I didn't mean to offend anyone last night who has been so generous with their time and advice over the past year. Thank you. Jane was a bit upset after some comments, and I've had some adult beverages, so I took it out on you guys. I know you all want the best for us, and are just trying to prevent future issues, probably from hard-earned experiences. Jane and I will both be fine. Please keep calling them like you see them. Update 40. Well, we had the daughter and her fiancé to our house for dinner last night Saturday. We canceled the dinner theater date next month with them, and invited them to dinner at our home instead, because when I took the fiancé up flying this week, he said that the daughter is taking her father's passing pretty hard when she's in private and out of sight of being strong for the relatives. I mentioned the idea, and Jane was a little surprised but agreed it might be good. Our son also attended, as he and the fiancé are in the same industry, and our son wanted to meet him. Son's wife had taken the kids to their other grandparents for a planned sleepover, so all worked out well. Jane has known the daughter for many years and watched her grow up in pictures. The was a proud father, and everyone had always bored the office staff and clients with pictures of their kids over the years, including Jane. Of course, Jane interacted with the daughter some when they were dating, and the daughter did not approve. Not of Jane, but believed that her father was partly responsible for breaking up Jane's marriage, and encouraged her to break off with her father and get back with me. Not sure if she pressed that with her father too, but I assume so. In any case, both Jane and I like her, and her fiancé too. I say he's a stand-up guy, and Jane says he's a keeper. Do women really think of men as disposable? He's a keeper. Grinning here, just teasing Jane. Our son and the fiancé talked quite a bit, and it turns out they know several people in common and shared college and business stories with each other. Son definitely has a new friend. Jane and I mostly talked with Alm's daughter, and she's doing okay, but we could tell she misses her dad. I made up an excuse to leave for a bit to take care of Jerry, our lab, and some other chores to give Jane and Alm's daughter some time alone. Not sure what they discussed, but when I returned, they both had Kleenex and damp eyes. We made arrangements for me to introduce the fiancé to a flight instructor CFI I've known for years because he wants to start flying lessons. I called the CFI while they were here and vouched for both. I am also going to talk to the guy who bought my plane to see if he might consider a young partner in the plane and hangar. I think it could be a good match for both. Jane and I will not be attending the Alm's future celebration of life event, and Alm's daughter understands. Jane did offer to help her put together her daughter's old photos and video clips into a slideshow or video presentation for the event. Jane is creative and good at that, and I'm okay with it. All is well. We now have some new friends, and so does our son, and we may have a new private pilot in the making, and my daughter is expecting. Nothing is perfect, but this is pretty close. Edit. Did we ever let the ladies watch NFL games with us? On the first regular season weekend, the ladies watched upstairs while the men were in the basement as normal. The next week we invited them down with us for a trial run on probation. So glad we did. Jane and another wife are still not very understanding of the game yet, but they are trying, and the other wives and guys are helping. All the gals are great sports about the teasing and give back as good as they get. We have a great time, and the ladies have even more clever jokes and quips than the guys. Last week we laughed till I couldn't breathe. Jane and the wives are planning a theme for each week. We joke with them that we draw the line if they make us wear seasonal costumes, unless they agree to wear skimpy, naughty outfits each game. I don't know why I was so apprehensive of them being here in the first place. I look forward to game days even more now. Yes, my old analyst friend does attend game days with us, and he brings Jane's friend. They are still dating. They first met when we all went to see the new Top Gun Maverick movie together back in June. Jane the Matchmaker. Update 41. The sanctity of the cave is still intact. We men still have our monthly poker game down there and smoke cigars and say crude things to each other. I still go down there and play music loud in the dark. In fact, a few weeks ago Jane texted down to me to turn it up a little. She wanted to hear it better. I didn't even know she was home, but I cranked it up a bit, and now that's my new volume. Especially when she's home, my hearing may also be deteriorating a little with age. I purchased a used stainless steel oven hood and powered vent assembly, so I will be able to cook burgers and brats or whatever indoors on a gas griddle when it gets too cold outside. I just mounted a detector for various gases and fumes this week recommended by a fireman, a game watcher, before using the griddle. Jane still respects it as my space and wants me to keep it manly, her words. It's odd that the only responses I got from the last post were my offhand thoughts about inviting the ladies down for NFL games, but I get it. Jane concedes that the theme for each week refers mostly to the team we're playing: Western, Eastern, Northern, Southern, and the season Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. It has mostly to do with food, not decorating or